It's the Mixed Martial Arts Hour with
Mixed Martial Arts Hour back in your life on this Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018. Hello again, everyone. I'm Mario Helwani back inside our New York City studio. Happy New Year to all of you. Happy holidays. Hope you had a great holiday season. I missed you dearly. It has been a little over 2 weeks since we've done a live show. Hope you enjoyed the best of show last week, but it is great to be back in the studio, back doing a live show. And this, my friends, is one of my favorite shows of the year. I look forward to it each and every year. It's our annual awards show. If you've never seen it before, every year around this time, New York Rick and I give out awards. In my opinion, it's the best and most comprehensive award show in the sport of MMA. 20 categories. We also look ahead to next year. We make some bold predictions, but we've got them all on today's show. We've got male and female fighter of the year, knockout of the year, submission of the year, comeback of the year, breakthrough fighter of the year, most improved. We've got some interesting ones and unique ones like photo of the year, promo of the year, feel good moment of the year, walkout of the year. And for the first time in the history of the award show, we're going to be hearing from multiple award winners. We're going to be hearing live from my male fighter of the year, my female fighter of the year, my fight of the year winner, my round of the year winner, and then also throughout the show, several award winners have already sent in acceptance speeches via text message video. So you'll be seeing them throughout the show accepting this most prestigious award, the 2017 MMA Hour Award. Nothing bigger in the sport of MMA. I love it. Now, I also gave New York Rick the opportunity to reach out to his own award winners. I'm not sure if he was successful in doing so, but there's no handouts here. I reached out. I did the legwork. Some people cried. Some people got very emotional. Some people couldn't wait to come on the program to accept the award. And what's interesting about this particular year, my friends, is, look, as I said during our post-fight wrap-up on Saturday, UFC 219, and don't worry, we'll talk about that as well. Somewhat of a forgettable year when it comes to MMA, but when you take a step back and really look at 2017, there were a lot of interesting moments. And what makes this year interesting as far as awards are concerned, unlike last year, where I felt like there were a lot of sort of no-brainers, I think there's going to be a lot of debate this year. I really do. So this is the perfect time to do it. January 2nd, there was a fight this past weekend. Actually, two big events, UFC 219 and Ryzen had their last two shows of the year. There's a break this weekend. It's a good time to look back on the year that was. So like I said, later on in the program, around 125, we are going to hear from my male fighter of the year. By the way, I don't know who New York Rick picked. I have no idea. All 20 categories. I have no idea. We'll also hear from my female fight of the year. We'll also hear from my half of my fight of the year winner and round of the year winner. And throughout the show, we'll get some video acceptance speeches. So you want to know the rundown? This is the rundown. Male fighter of the year, female fighter of the year, fight of the year, round of the year, knockout of the year, submission of the year, breakthrough fighter of the year, most improved fighter of the year. This one's really interesting. Comeback of the year. Now, how do you interpret this? Is it in a fight? Career? That one is always interesting. And I was very tempted to rename it the Ronda Rousey Comeback of the Year winner, because if you recall last year, in one of the lowest moments in the history of this show, New York Rick gave the award to Ronda Rousey, who was a couple days removed from losing in very dominant fashion to Amanda Nunes and had not done anything in 2016. So we'll see what he comes up with this year for that one. Upset of the year, rivalry of the year, coach of the year, which is always a tough one, event of the year, crowd of the year, walkout of the year, promo of the year, photo of the year, which, by the way, first year that we do this, I remember last year we said that we wanted to include it. I'm happy that we're doing so. And in my opinion, there's a really great winner this year. Impact person of the year, story of the year, And number 20 is feel good moment of the year. As far as bold predictions are concerned, we'll tell you who we think will be the male and female fighter of the year for 2018. We'll also tell you what we think the story of the year will be in 2018. And we'll both give you a guest or two that we'd love to see on this program. Remember last year we got Bjorn Rebnian at the buzzer. So it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot that's happened since we last spoke, of course. UFC 219 in the books. Cris Cyborg is the reigning defending UFC featherweight champion. Before we get to 219, so like I said, it's been a little over 2 weeks since we last spoke. We had the final show of the year, mid-December. Then we had the best of show, which featured in-studio guests that we've had come through over the past year. It was a great year, I thought, for the program last year because we got the new studio, got the new set, and the new set I thought was a lot more conducive for in-studio guests. So we had, I think, 33 different guests come through the studio. It was a lot of fun. It was fun to put that together, and I appreciate the crew in New York, Rick, putting that together, the hard work that they put into it. And then we went off to Vegas. I actually went off to Miami before Vegas. I was there with my family for a week. It was a great time. A little bit of a vacation, so to speak, but there's never really a vacation when you're covering sports or covering any kind of beat in the news world because the news doesn't sleep. They don't care. The newsmakers, if you will, the people who you cover if you're on vacation or not. So there was some news like the Jimmy Rivera situation with Marlon Moraes and, of course, John Lineker pulling out of UFC 219. There was some other breaking news like Donald Cerrone and Yancy Medeiros. So a few things happened here or there. It wasn't the craziest time. The highlight for me that week, in my opinion, was, or at least for my vacation, was I took my son to a basketball game, a Miami Heat game, and I paid $200 for a ticket for him and I, and unfortunately he fell asleep before the national anthem. He never even saw a single basket made, and I had a feeling this was going to happen. My wife told me this was going to happen, but I really wanted to take him to the game because his cousins were going. And I said, you know what, maybe he'll stay up. He'll get excited. Fell asleep before the national anthem. I left at the end of the first quarter. I maintain, though, that we will remember this moment more so than if he, stayed up for the entire game. It was a good memory. It was tough to carry him and to find a cab to go back to the hotel and all that, but it was a lot of fun. He was sleeping. I felt bad letting him sleep on the chair, and his head was drooping, and I just felt like a bad father doing that. But that was one highlight, and then the highlight of all highlights happened actually on New Year's Eve for me. I got back from Las Vegas, and my wife and two kids, my sons, went to a New Year's party, but I stayed back because my daughter was sleeping, who's 1 year old, and secretly I pretended like I was unhappy that I couldn't go to the party, but secretly I was very happy that I couldn't go to the party. I was extremely happy because my beloved Buffalo Bills were on the cusp of making the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. And some people are saying 17 years, but I maintain it's 18 years because it was like a month off or like 2 weeks off. Maybe not even 2 weeks, like a day off or something like that. In 1999. So 1999, 2017, I say 18 years. Anyway, I was watching the game. They were playing the Dolphins. They were winning. Then my daughter wakes up and she won't stop crying. And I finally get her to go to sleep. And it ends up that I'm in a dark room. All the lights are off in our den, watching as the Bills win. And then they go to the Bengals-Ravens game. And then some way, somehow, the Bengals won fourth, and I think it was 4th and 12, 49-yard touchdown. The great Andy Dalton hits his touchdown. It's amazing. And then the Bills make the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. The last time the Bills made the playoffs, I was 17 years old. I was in high school. And there I was on the couch with my daughter lying on me, crying because the Bills had finally made the playoffs. What a moment. I will never forget New Year's Eve 2017. I will never forget that. It was a great moment. It was a very emotional moment. It was a great way to start the year, or at least to say goodbye to 2017 and say hello to 2018. I was so excited. Now we're going to go to Jacksonville. We're going to win that one, and then we're going to go on and win the Super Bowl. What a great time. Of course, I was coming back from Las Vegas, UFC 219. As I said, Cris Cyborg retained her title. I thought it was a great fight. I thought it was an entertaining fight. In fact, I actually thought it was one of the fights of the year. I really did. It was 4-1 for Cris Cyborg. I know there's some controversy as far as the scorecards are concerned, but these were close rounds. First round, I thought went to Cris. Second round, I gave to Holly. You could have swapped them, really. And I almost tweeted. I ran out of time because I was focusing so much on the fight. But I was about to tweet that I wouldn't have been surprised if Cris was up 2-0, if Holly Holm was up 2-0 going into the third, if it was tied 1-1. So I don't hate the scorecard or the scorecards, which had Holly up 2-0 going into the third, and then eventually 2-2 going into the fifth. But if you actually look at the entire fight, Cris Cyborg won that fight, and she was the rightful winner. But it was a lot closer, I think, than people thought. And if you go back and tell someone that you had it 4-1, they'll think, all right, well, Cris Cyborg rolled. That wasn't the case. I thought it was the most competitive fight of Cris Cyborg's career. I thought Holly fought a pretty good fight for the most part. There were times where I felt like she was leaving herself open. You saw the picture afterwards. I think it was her right or left eye that was completely swollen shut, bruised up. But she is the first person to take Cris all 5 rounds. She's the first person to make Cris Cyborg have a bloody nose in a fight. So that's somewhat notable. But in the end, as you see right there, Cris Cyborg wins the fight. And now the big question is, where does she go from here? Who is she going to fight? She's saying, oh, I'd love to fight Megan Anderson in Australia. Well, the next Australian event is UFC 221 in Perth. And from what I'm hearing, Megan Anderson will not be ready to fight on that card. Now, Megan Anderson is not injured. Megan Anderson is not tending to some kind of, body injury, so to speak. She's dealing with some stuff that isn't necessarily bad, but she has not decided to talk about it. And it's nothing like she's pregnant or anything like that. Like, she'll be able to fight, but she has to get through some stuff, clear some hurdles, and the timing doesn't work. Right now, there are some talks that the UFC is going to go back to Brazil in May for a pay-per-view. I feel like that makes more sense for Cyborg's return. Have her headline, Brazilian champion, give her the rub, so to speak, and hopefully they can fix those issues with Megan. There's also been some talks of Amanda Nunes fighting her. Not sure how much I love that, especially with Raquel Pennington coming back. I think that those divisions need to be kept separate. The 145, I think, could afford to be, playing around like that. But I think I think for 135 to go up, even though there's not that much going on, stalls things a little bit. Cyborg has also said multiple times that she doesn't like the idea of fighting a Brazilian champion. So we'll see what happens there. Those are her 2 main options right now. Once we get past those options, and that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but there really isn't all that much. They still haven't invested in the 145-pound women's division. It's crazy. There's no other fighter signed. There's no rankings. The Holly Holm fight was the biggest fight that they could put on by far. And so that's a story to watch in 2018, among many others. What are they doing with this division? They just re-signed Cyborg, so they're in the Cyborg business. And I'm very curious to see what the pay-per-view numbers will be, because it was a very cold weekend, especially in the Northeast. It was the day before New Year's Eve, so maybe people are deciding to stay home. It wasn't the deepest card of all time, but, people are staying home. It's cold. They have nothing to do. Why not watch this great fight that I thought was one of the better fights of the year? And on paper going in, one of the most important women's fights in MMA history. And by the way, there's been some controversy over the past 24 hours or so about the social media post by Jackson Wink. Let me just say this. Jackson Wink is, in my opinion, one of the most prestigious gyms and teams in MMA history. And it is because not only are they home to some of the best fighters in MMA history, but they're home to some of the most respected, not only fighters and coaches in the sport's history. Yeah, there's some black sheep here or there, but we're talking about men and women with integrity and character. You're talking about like good human beings. I mean, the coaching staff from Greg Jackson to Mike Winklejohn to Brandon Gibson, Israel Martinez. I mean, these are great human beings. And the way that their social media team, because I'll pin it on a team, because I know there's more than one person involved, continues to embarrass them and drag their name through the mud is absolutely embarrassing. It really is. It's disgraceful. And if they don't do something about it, I mean, I don't believe that Brandon Gibson or Wink or Jackson are posting these things about Cyborg and others. Aljamain Sterling, recently there was an issue. But they need to do something about it, because just like the John Jones situation somewhat drags their name through the mud, this is doing the same exact thing. They need to stop it. It's embarrassing. It's disgraceful. They're better than that. They should care, because it's their name, their reputation being soiled. So enough with this. And Cyborg should stop with the retaliation. It's all ugly and stupid. It was a great fight. There was a lot of respect between the two going into it, going out of it, hugging, saying the right things. Just enough with all the other crap. Is just stop. It's childish. And it's insulting. Enough with it. Of course, the big story, in my opinion, on Saturday was the return of Khabib Nurmagomedov. He rolls through Edson Barbosa. He completely dominates him. It was one of the more dominant fights of the year, 30-24, which is very rare. So he's finally back. I mean, this is a guy who had not fought in 13 months, and look what he did to Edson. Never in doubt. He looked incredible. He looked better than ever. And afterwards, he didn't really want to play, the Tony game, the Conor game, but there has been some back and forth between Conor and him on social media, which is something that Conor doesn't usually do. So we'll see what happens there. But it was just so great to see Khabib back. And on a day, by the way, where he welcomed his second child to the world, which is fascinating because I didn't even know he had a daughter to begin with. I didn't even know he was married. And then I find out on Saturday morning that he welcomed a baby boy. Back home in Dagestan, his wife gave birth to a healthy baby boy. So Mabruk, congratulations, Mazel Tov to the Nurmagomedovs. And I asked him afterwards, why do you keep things so private? And people got mad at me for that. By the way, I didn't go seek out the information that he was having a kid or had a kid. I didn't even know he had a wife. They told me. So they clearly wanted it out there. And then I was like, wow, this is fascinating. You look at his social media, there is no mention of fatherhood, of marriage, or anything. And I respect the fact that he keeps it private. But then I was curious, why do you keep it so private? When there's I think that's probably someone that popular back home, probably the way to go. But even for like even in an interview, doesn't mention it. Very interesting. Said he wants to fight 3 times next year. Said he wants to return around April, May, before Ramadan, fight in September after Ramadan, and then fight again in December. If that could happen, if Khabib Nurmagomedov could fight 3 times, if he could do that in 2018, he will be and if he wins, and if he's victorious, he will be a superstar. He will be one of the biggest stars in the sport, certainly worldwide. He has that Triple G-like quality to him. People enjoy him, his trash talk, his interviews. He has a very loyal fan base. I suggest he starts finishing people only because he keeps saying, I could have finished him, but I let it go. I think the finishes will go a long way. People are attracted to that, like with Triple G. So I'm really curious to see what happens to him next. Does he fight Tony next? Does he get the Conor fight? And if he doesn't get one of those two, who does he get? We'll talk about that, I'm sure, later on in the program. Carlos Condit returned. He lost to Neil Magny. Didn't seem like himself. It's always tricky when someone retires and takes a break and a hiatus, and then you don't know why they're coming back. It just seemed like he was rusty and couldn't really put it into the next gear. Credit to Magny, great fight. But yeah, that was not the Carlos Condit that I think a lot of us were expecting. Carlos Barza beats Cynthia Calvillo. Calvillo with a great year. She ends 4-1 in 2017. She loses 1 time in the UFC, 3-1 in the UFC. She won 1 outside of the UFC. She was disappointed afterwards. I thought it was the right call. Y'all must have forgot. Carlos Barza is a force at 115. She is a former Invicta champion. She is a former UFC champion. She is not a stepping stone. Maybe her style isn't the most fan-friendly, but she is tough. She is a very tough out. She proved that on Saturday. Mark J. Casey falters again. 0-2 in his last 2. T-Mobile is a house of horrors for Mark J. Casey. He loses to Dan Hooker, but that was somewhat surprising that he ended the year 0-2. And then how about Miles Jury with a big win at 145? Tim Elliott with a very emotional victory after the passing of his coach and mentor, Robert Follis. He beat Mark De La Rosa. Nice little 10-fight card. We didn't get the Jamir Vera against John Lineker fight. John Lineker had a tooth infection, and then they tried to do the Marlon Moraes fight. Moraes couldn't make the weight. They tried to do John Dotson. That was not of interest. And so we did not get Jamir Vera, and I'm curious to see what happens to him next. Plenty other news to discuss, but now let's start to focus on the awards. Let me bring in Mr. New York Rick before we get to our fighter of the year. There he is, Mr. New York Rick. New year, new you. Not really.
Not really. Well,
you look the same.
Thank you. Is that good? Is that bad?
I was hoping for a bit of a trim. I was hoping for a little bit of a cleanup, but we're just going all out, right? How long are we going with the beard?
This has been trimmed. It's not like
That's been trimmed?
It's not like I've just been growing this for like 5 years. Like
Could have fooled me.
It's been. I mean, there was a point where I was worried I wouldn't be able to grow a beard. Period, because I'm not like follically gifted. Let's say.
So you're just loving this.
I'm not loving this, but I'm liking it better than when I was a baby face without the facial hair at all. No, this is like 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's not going anywhere.
I like the shirt, by the way.
I mean,
It's a nice
you
looking
know how
shirt.
I feel. I rep.
Your mic is covering it, though.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, can we get... Yeah, there we go.
I rep. Does the brand rep me?
I know.
Though?
I feel like you said this last year, too. Were you wearing
No,
this
I
shirt?
said this every week. I'm gonna say this every week.
Has Khabib told me in the past that he was a dad? Maybe I just forgot. Someone's telling me that he's told me in the past.
I remember a video interview where he
did tell me this.
He did say that.
Maybe I mean he doesn't really flaunt it, I guess.
Yeah, he's not exactly Conor McGregor with 20 pics of his.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
I know he
don't
kind of
have
took a shot at that, but there's nothing. I mean, like you're in that boat. Like there's nothing wrong with like do you? But it's interesting that he is super private, right?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me based on him.
Sure, we have seen situations where guys are expecting kids around the time that they fight, and this is sort of a talking point to find out the day of his return fight, a very important fight for him, that he was, a father for the second time, baby boy, pretty cool.
Khabib is he's an interesting cat,
and he's going all out on Twitter these days. It's fun on social media to follow those, but we're not talking about this right now. We're talking about the awards.
Let's talk about. Okay,
let me ask you first. You went through it all. You have your picks, right?
I do.
Compared to years past, was this an easy one for you? Was this a difficult one for you to come down to the winners?
Last year was very difficult for a different reason than this year. Last year was very difficult because there were so many for each category that I thought were worthy. I really had a hard time kind of zeroing in on my winner. With this one, I think the difficulty was in the runners-up, in picking the honorable and notable mentions. The winners themselves for me this year were not that difficult. I felt pretty confident in most of my picks. I was pretty happy with all of them. But there were so many honorable mentions this year. It was insane how many people, or how many people, fights, moments, whatever, were worth talking about.
How much time do you invest in the honorable mentions? Like, do you feel that's important?
I do feel that it's very important because only one person can win or only one moment can win, but the other people in the other moments are still worthy. They should get some kind of notoriety. Fair. So I do invest. I have to admit I invest some time into it.
Okay.
It's not just pick the winner and then move on. I do spend some time on it.
Now, I asked Sean Al-Shadi at the end of our post-fight wrap-up on Saturday, 30, 40 years from now, he's sitting at home. He's got a bunch of grandkids. They go up to him. They say, Grandpa, what was 2017 like for MMA? What kind of year was it? His response, meh. That was it. What's your response? What kind of year was it?
It was,
I mean, you could use a word, by the way. It doesn't have to be a...
No, because you can't really encapsulate the confusion. I would say it was confusing.
Confusing.
The things that happened this year are not things that I could have foreseen 2 years ago. Maybe last year I could have seen them on the horizon, but 2 years ago, they're not things that I would have thought could happen in this sport. I mean, the biggest example, obviously, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather Jr. doing a boxing match.
Right.
I could not have foreseen that. I did not expect that. I didn't think that was a possibility for a fighter who's under contract with the UFC. I didn't think there would be so many fights falling off. I didn't think there would be so many interim titles generated. Not that hadn't happened last year. They started that kind of process last year, but I didn't. The direction of where the sport is going confused me. I'm not sure where it's going.
Do you feel like we're rounding the corner? Like, do you feel like the clouds are opening up here, or is it still confusing as we say hello to 2018?
It's less confusing because now I know to expect the chaos. I kind of you kind of get used to the what's going on more. So I'd say it's less confusing, but equally disheartening, maybe.
Wow.
I'm a little pessimistic.
This is a very pessimistic take. I mean, you're supposed to be the positive guy. You're the guy who says, oh, Rick's picks is all positive. I have a different take. I have a very positive take. I feel like we're rounding the corner here. We've got Ngannou Miocic. Yeah. We've got Whittaker now as the official champion. He's going to, I think Conor's going to come back.
But what does that mean? Whittaker's the official champion. And then what? Does that mean that he'll get the number 2 contender in his next fight? Or does that
Luke
mean
Rockhold.
that some random... Yeah, after that, does that mean that some random guy could come out of retirement?
At the end of the day, it all depends on the new ownership group, right? Are they going to go back to hot-shotting like they did last year?
Yeah.
Or have they learned some lessons?
Well, that's why I don't know.
And the lesson should be that you can't just book for tonight. You have to look ahead. Because again, for the millionth time, the job of the matchmakers is not to create champions, it's to create contenders. You need a queue of contenders, okay? So that's the lesson that they need to. And we're going to talk about the story of the year. We're going to talk about the story of this past year and next year. So we'll have plenty of time to get into all of that. But I say we get into things right off the bat here. I think we just get right into it. I told you before the show that you'll go first as far as Fight of the Year is concerned, but I think I should go first.
I think that's right.
So, like I said, we will be joined by my Fighter of the Year in a matter of seconds here. So we'll say goodbye to New York, Rick, as I'll set it up. Here is the official start of the 2017 MMA Hour Awards, the most prestigious, the most comprehensive award show in mixed martial arts. 20 categories: Male Fighter of the Year, Female Fighter, Fight, Round, Knockout, Submission, Breakthrough, Most Improved Comeback, Upset, Rivalry, Coach, Event, Crowd, Walkout, Promo, Photo, Impact Person, Story of the Year, and my personal favorite, Feel Good Moment of the Year. Let's be positive in 2018. The glass is half full. The sky is blue. It is sunny outside. We are rounding the corner. We will not be bogged down by the negativity that some people want to spew and bring upon our shoulders. We will see the good in MMA. We are turning the corner, and things are starting to clear up. I believe it. I feel it. And so let's talk about Male Fighter of the Year. Last year, I like to do this. I like to tell you my pick last year, and then I like to tell you my pick this year. Last year, my pick, Michael Bisping. Remember, he won a UFC 199. He defended the title at 204. It was the shocker of all shockers. He also won my upset of the year. What a moment it was. But it was a tough one to predict. It was a tough one to pick, I should say, because Cody Garbrandt went from unranked champ. Stipe Miocic became champion. Great run for him as well. Conor McGregor, 2-1, avenged his loss to Nate Diaz, but also beat Eddie Alvarez to become the first champ in MMA history. And there was also Amanda Nunes, who beat Shevchenko and Miesha Tate, and of course Ronda Rousey to end the year. Actually, she was in my Women's Fighter of the Year. But she could have been both. She could have been both. Why not? The point is, last year I thought there were like surefire picks, and you could have made a strong case. This year there was some picks. I think it came down to 3 or 4 people, but I feel like you can make a strong case for each and every one of them. In fact, I put out a poll earlier today. I put out a poll, and I asked people who their Fighter of the Year was. I don't know. Can I see this here? Let me see if I could see it here. Yeah, here it is. Already 19,000 people have voted on this. I asked them, who's your Male Fighter of the Year? I asked if it's Demetrius Johnson, Max Holloway, or Robert Whittaker. And then I also gave the option of other. 25% to Demetrius Johnson, 52% to Max Holloway, 16% to Robert Whittaker, and then 7% to other. Demetrius Johnson, if you recall, win over Wilson Hayes back in April. And then he followed that up with the win over Ray Borg in October and pulled off one of the greatest submissions in the history of the sport. In doing so, he also became the most successful champion in UFC history because he beat Anderson Silva's title defense record, and now he sits atop that list all by himself. Very notable. Max Holloway was in action in June. He beat Jose Aldo to become the official featherweight champion, and then he was going to fight Frankie Edgar, if you recall, in December, but unfortunately Frankie Edgar gets hurt, breaks his orbital bone, and he has to fight Jose Aldo again, and he beats him again, which is very notable and very impressive. Robert Whittaker, let's not forget, even though he was interim champion, even though he never actually won the belt, so to speak, I mean, you can make the case that he had the toughest road of all. Don't let revisionist history affect you here. Going into that fight against Jacare in April, most people, if not all, were picking Jacare. That was somewhat of a shocker. That's a finalist for upset of the year, in my opinion. I don't remember what the odds are, but I know most of you did not think that he was going to win that fight. And then he goes into the Romero fight, and I think most people were thinking that, like, no one wanted to fight Romero. Remember, like, Romero was the boogeyman. No one wanted to fight him. Went in there and beat him after, I believe, losing the first 2 rounds. Won a 5-round decision. Then, of course, the whole thing got a little screwy with the middleweight title and the MSG show. He didn't fight again this year. And that was another tough thing. Like, I thought the top contenders all fought 2 times, when last year we had a bunch who fought 3 times, 4 times. Cody Garbrandt. So, it made it a little more difficult. I think if one of them had 3 wins, there were some who did not win belts. RDA, I think, was in the mix. Volkan Ozdemir was in the mix. There were some who did not win belts, but typically, when it comes to fight of the year, historically, this isn't like a hard fast rule, but historically, it's someone who's holding a title, won a belt, etc. And so, I think it came down to those 3. I think it came down to Max Holloway with the 2 victories over Jose Aldo. Does it hurt him that he fought the same guy twice? You be the judge. I think it came down to Demetrius Johnson, who had 2 finishes over top contenders, one of the greatest submissions of all time. And, oh, by the way, he breaks a record. And let's not forget, with what we saw in November, what we saw at 217, holding a belt, look at Joanna, look at Ronda, holding a belt for 5-6 title defenses is hard enough. Holding it for 1 or 2 title defenses, just ask Luke Rockhold, hard enough. Doing it 11 times, I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. Forget about the he's just fighting who's put in front of him. And by the way, he's fighting a couple of guys twice. To do that 11 times, that's going to be one of the toughest records to ever break in this sport. And there's no sign of him slowing down. And so, yeah, I do feel like that should be considered. We saw some great champions who we thought would be dominant for a very long time. We saw some great champions falter a lot sooner than we thought. It is when you're on top of the mountain, when everyone's expecting you to win, when there's such a large gap between being champion and not being champion, when that fall is so steep, there's a lot of pressure on the champion to stay at the top, to keep getting that championship purse, to keep getting those endorsements, to keep getting those pay-per-view points. I mean, there's a massive discrepancy between being champion and not being champion. And that's why we've seen some guys who have said, yeah, sure, I'll take the interim belt. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter, because what the interim belt does, it kicks in certain things into your contract. So it doesn't matter to them that it's a fictitious title or a promotional title or whatever you want to call it. Just get me the belt and certain things will kick in. And they certainly don't want to lose that belt, because when they lose that belt, there is I don't think fans really get that. There is a big, big, big discrepancy between being champion and not being a champion. A massive discrepancy in your pay, in your lifestyle, in what you get to fight. And so I think that's important to note when you're trying to break down, who's been the best, who's been the most dominant, who's had the best year. Some other names worth discussing before I actually announce who my fighter of the year is. So we talked about Demetrius. We talked about Max Holloway. I do think RDA deserves a nod for reinventing himself at 170, for the win over Neil Magny, for the win over Robbie Lawler. He had a great year. 3-0 as a 170-pounder, and if you remember what happened last year, to him losing the belt, he had a nightmare of a year last year. 2016 was a nightmare for RDA. And I think a lot of people thought that he would crumble as a result of this. But he moves up to 170. He changes things up dramatically, I think, and even changed a bit of his coaching staff, the people around him, his corner. And look what he is on the cusp of a title shot. I think most people would agree he should probably be next for a title shot. He could also be in the discussion for comeback fighter of the year. He could also be in the discussion for most improved fighter of the year. I think he has improved a lot as a 170 pounder. And then another name to consider is Volkan Ozdemir. 3-0 on the cusp of a title shot, on the verge of a title shot. Knocked out the likes of Misha Serkinov, knocked out the likes of Jimmy Manuwa, beat OSP, who had a great back end of the year. He could also be in the discussion for most improved breakthrough fighter. GSP as well. Even though he fought once, is he in that discussion? Could he be breakthrough? Could he be comeback of the year? In the end, though, it was a very tough choice. But in the end, I picked a winner who I'm very confident is the right winner. I really, this was, to me, the toughest category of them all because there were a lot of worthy winners. But in the end, I went with the man who defended his title twice, who finished both opponents, who pulled off one of the greatest submissions in the history of the sport, if not the greatest submission in the history of the sport. And I went with the man who made history in October in Las Vegas, the man who became the winningest champion in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. If Demetrius Johnson did not win the Fighter of the Year award in 2017, he'll never win the Fighter of the Year award. This was the year of Mighty Mouse. He deserves it. He earned it. And he is my 2017 Male Fighter of the Year. DJ, are you there? DJ, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There he is. Fighter of the Year, Demetrius Johnson. How about a round of applause? It was such a big deal. It was such a prestigious moment. There he is on Skype. I can't believe it. Wow. We finally got him. Yes. How are you, sir?
What's happening?
Wow.
I'm good. Can you hear me still? Or no?
I can hear you. I can see you. This is fantastic. Look at this. Look at this connection.
Perfect.
Finally.
Perfect.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm happy to have it. I think you are the best when it comes to covering the sport of mixed martial arts. So thank you. It's an honor.
For the world to know, I told DJ, you won the award. You're my Fighter of the Year. And he said, okay, now I'll finally come on Skype. This whole time he could have come on Skype.
No, bullshit. No. It wasn't that bad.
Oh, but this is the perfect time to debut your great stream. I mean, look at this connection. It's fantastic. So congratulations, Fighter of the Year. 2 wins, 2 submissions, 2 great finishes. I mean, just fantastic stuff. You break the record in October, one of the greatest subs. When I ask you about 2017, as far as your career is concerned, where does this one rank? Do you think this was your best year yet? Is it your second? How would you sort of summarize and recall the year that was for you?
Yeah, I would say it's probably my best year yet. Obviously, submitting Wilson Hayes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with an armbar, and then getting Ray Borg and the Mighty Wizard. It was awesome. Always doing something new in the octagon that nobody has ever seen. I mean, there's been people around the world trying that move. There's people who've been watching mixed martial arts before I was even around this sport saying, I've seen everything, and I had never seen that before. Thank you so much for displaying mixed martial arts at its greatest.
So I put up a poll earlier today, and I asked people who their Fighter of the Year was. You, Robert Whittaker, Max Holloway. Those are the choices, because I think it really came down to you three. As far as the 20,000 votes thus far, a lot of people, the majority of the people, I think 50% gave it to Max Holloway. What do you think about this choice? Do you think they're crazy?
I think it's a great choice.
Okay.
I think it's a great choice. Max Holloway, big fan of his, very humble. I like the guy. And that's why, I got to keep setting the bar even higher. I don't see anybody stopping Max Holloway anytime soon. And I think it's a great choice. Max Holloway's beat Jose Aldo twice, back-to-back, finished him back-to-back. And he never shies away from a challenge. So I'll cast my vote for Max Holloway.
No.
So I actually voted for Max Holloway. I saw that Twitter poll, and I voted for him.
Really? Is that true?
Of course, yeah, I saw it. MMA Fighting. I voted this morning. He was at 25, and I was behind him. So it was him, me, and then I think it was Whittaker, and then you had other right.
Yeah. Okay. Wait a second. Are you saying that I'm wrong? Are you saying my pick is wrong?
No. Everybody has their opinion, Hawani. And in my opinion, I'm not going to vote for myself. I mean, that just seems very biased. But I like Maxwell. I like what he does. I've hung out with him before in Hawaii. Very chill. He doesn't believe he's better than anybody. He's a great human being. So I'm like the guy who likes the good guys. I don't care if you're a bad guy talking crap about people. But I gained a lot more respect from him after Frankie Edgar pulled out. In this day and age of mixed martial arts, you hear people calling each other out, saying, "Oh, he's a pussy, he's a bitch, blah, 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 he faked the injury." But Max Holloway went above everybody and says, "You know what, Frank Edgar, it's part of the sport. Get healthy, my man, and we'll see you next time." Other than that, if there's anybody else out there who's ready to fight, holler at your boy. Very respectful, very professional, and I love that about him. And that's why I cast my vote.
All right, fair enough. Do you think that not enough stock is put into the fact that you've defended the title so many times? Like, do people take this for granted? I think we've seen this year, so many champions falter. It is so tough to remain at the top, right? There's so much pressure, there's so much that goes into it. There's such a massive fall from grace. Do people really understand, in your opinion? I'm not trying to get you to toot your own horn, but it is tough to defend that title so many times, no?
100%. I mean, you see champions all the time. They get the belt, then they go on a 2-fight win streak, and then they lose it. But to be able to defend the belt from 2012 all the way to 2017, hopefully defending it 2 more times in 2018, it's extremely freaking hard. That's why there's only, a couple people who've done it. GSP, John Jones, Jose Aldo, me, and Anderson Silva. So there's 5 guys right there in the span of the time I've been a champion. And I always chuckle because I remember there was a time when Chris Weidman was champion, Jose was champion, Frankie was champion, Anna Brower was champion. Shit, hell, even TJ became champion. Demetrius was champion. But they're not champions anymore, and I'm still here sitting on my throne. So you see those pictures over the years of time. Even Ronda, Misha Tate, you just kind of like, damn, like, that's good shit, I guess.
Yes, very good shit. And by the way, while I have you here, we're gonna go in order throughout the show. But while I have you here, I don't want to just hog up one word. The Male Fighter of the Year is a very prestigious thing, but Demetrius Johnson, congratulations. You also won my Submission of the Year award. Now, this was the easiest award to decide on. You won the Submission of the Year award for your submission of Ray Borg back at UFC 216 in October. One of the greatest submissions I've ever seen. This one, if I put out a poll, this should be 100% you and 0 for everyone else, right? I mean, like, you can't be humble. This one has to be yours, right?
Yeah, I have to be. I mean, like I said, there's been people around the world trying this, and that's the beautiful thing about mixed martial arts, and I would tell people that. You have to think outside of the box. And when I pulled out that submission, how I learned it was from Matt Hume. Me and him were sparring, and he's having a hard time getting me in the armbar, rear naked choke. And so he mixed in a wrestling snap down. So basically, a suplex to a wrestling snap down. If anybody's wrestled before, when somebody does a sit out, you snap him down and pin him. But he basically did that, mixed it in, and threw me between his legs and did an armbar. And I said, after he submitted me, I got up, I would go, God bless your soul. Teach me this. And then he taught it, and he taught it to me. He taught that class. And I've been hitting that submission for years and years. And then each time I'm training and sparring, I'm always pushing myself to submit my training partners. And that was the week before we went out to fight Ray Borg. This turned out to be a 12-week camp. I was sparring, and Matt was yelling. He goes, hit it. And so I hit it, and Matt goes, dude, like, you got to hit that. You mastered it. You've been doing it for years. He goes, that's $50,000 submission right there, DJ. That's what that is. And so when he came in this fight, I was like, you know what? I got energy left. Ray Borg is my size. He weighs the same as me. I got this. And I threw him up and, landed it. So I'm grateful that you picked it as submission of the year, Errol One. I truly appreciate that. And I hope everybody around the world enjoys that submission. And I got some more stuff out of that bag that you guys haven't seen yet. But I hope that one day I'll be able to pull it out for you guys.
My question is, since you pulled that off a little less than 3 months ago, how many pro fighters have come up to you and asked you about that? How often do you get asked about that submission? Because I would imagine on that Monday morning after you pulled it off that every guy was at the gym, every girl trying to pull that off.
Yeah. Francis Ngannou came up to me and goes, Mikey, how did you do that? What is that? Huh? what is that move? And I told him, and I told him I'll do it on him, but I didn't want to blow out my lower back because he's so big and tall. But yeah, all people around the world have praised me on it and said that's pretty dope. They tried it in the gym. And what I wanted to achieve when I did that move is to open everybody's mind that it's mixed martial arts. So even though the submission was a jiu-jitsu move, you can get there by other ways. In wrestling, when I was in high school, my coach says you should be able to hit every single move from any position. So arm drag to double leg, snap down to double leg. You should be able to hit a move anywhere. So with my armbar, I can essentially hit it from any position because it's my favorite submission.
I want to bring in New York Rick. Is New York Rick there? New York Rick going once, going twice.
I'm here.
Yeah, let's just hear his voice. I mean, let's not.
I'm here.
Let's go back to the champ here. I just want to hear his voice. I don't need to see the guy.
Mighty Mouse back on.
Where's
screen.
Mighty Mouse? Did we lose him? No.
I'm right here.
Okay. Demetrius, New York Rick is here. He gives out awards too, and he put in his vote for Fighter of the Year. New York Rick, why don't you tell Mighty Mouse who your Fighter of the Year is for 2017?
I think Demetrius will appreciate this. My Fighter of the Year for 2017 is Max Holloway.
Get out of here! Are you serious? You're gonna tell the champ of champs? Really? No respect. Come on. Deep down, you think he's an idiot, right, DJ?
No. I mean, like I said, everybody has an opinion. And like I said, I cast my vote for Max Holloway. I like the guy. I think he's good. I think he has all the right tools to be a champion for a long time, as long as he can stay healthy. I don't see anybody beating him, man. I think his toughest test will probably come from, Brian Ortega, a very young guy. Also Chad Mendez when he gets back in there. And other than that, I don't see anybody else coming up right now. I mean, I remember everybody said Steve Bieber's going to 145, but they're all high. He was trolling every single one of you guys to believe that. But we'll see. But I think Max is going to be there for a long time. Fantastic year, Max.
New York Rick, did you at least agree with me on submission of the year?
I did indeed.
Okay, well,
the Mighty Wizbar is the submission of the year for sure.
There you go. See, now he's got some sense. You can keep him. I'm going to say you should fire him and hire somebody off the street.
If anyone gives that submission to anyone else, I mean, that you do not deserve to be covering the sport or talking about it or doing anything involved in it. Before I let you go quickly here, DJ, you mentioned 2 fights next year. That's the plan for 2018. That's what you want?
That's the plan. Next year, 2 fights. There comes a point in time. I was looking at my Wikipedia page, and there's time I fought 4 times in 1 year. I've defended on belt 3 times in a year, and also got surgery between those title defenses. So I think it's safe to say that my goal is to get 2 title defenses this year, and we're going to go from there. So it's 2018. Goals is 2 title defenses and try to stay healthy, and we'll see you then. Don't worry, everybody. Next time you see me on MMA Hour, I'll be announcing my next fight or what's next for me. Yes. But until then, make sure you follow the Twitch channel, Mighty Mouse UFC 125, Twitch.tv, and the YouTube channel, Mighty Gaming. Take a look.
Oh, the
Have
YouTube. You've been upping your YouTube game as of late. I've noticed that. So well done on that. By the way, I wanted to tell you before you go, we also do bold predictions. Last year, award show, so the 2016 award show, we had to make our pick for who we thought the 2017 Fighter of the Year was. I picked Demetrius Johnson. I just want to let you know that I picked you, and so I was proven right here. But wait. There was something on like a stream that came out on Twitch. Can you tell us anything about this on Saturday? What were you doing?
Look at you. So, so back to the beginning of the YouTube channel. So I'm always trying to expand my YouTube channel, and I think it's very important that fighters always brand themselves outside of what they're known for. So I can't fight forever. I'm 31 years old. As time goes on, my body's not recovered like it usually does. You just put more care in your body. So I'm going to focus more on my YouTube channel and with my gaming career. And with that being said, I never really show my outside life, what I'm doing. So when I was getting ready for the Metro PCS Purple Couch at UFC 219, make sure you guys hit the follow button, follow me on Facebook Live and YouTube and all that good stuff. I was doing a stream, and one of the segments of the show was we're going to have Sean Shelby on the show, and we were going to show all of the previous shows in the segments. And then saying, looking forward to 2018, here are some things that we're looking forward to, but we want to get Sean Shelby's piece of it. And one of the pieces was me versus TJ Dillashaw. We wanted to get Sean Shelby's reaction for that. So when the producer was doing his thing, he goes, we want to talk about TJ versus DJ. Not that the fight is, we don't know if it's going to happen or if it's been signed or anything like that. That was the segment, and then somebody caught it. Some stupid ass troll Tiger goes, oh my God, it's leaked. I got information. Yeah, go ahead and they read it. That's where it came from. So that's where the whole thing. But there you go. That's what it was.
Thank you for clearing that up. So there's no news to announce. There's nothing.
You've been hella hard, Arrow. You've been hella hard. You text me right after and goes, whoa, what's going on, DJ? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Arrow Hawani. Just got done taking a poop, and you're already texting me. For God's sake.
I need to know.
Okay,
I mean, it was all over the place. Everyone was like, it's just been announced. It's just been leaked. We're going to find out. And so I had to come to the source. That's what a journalist does. Is there anything you want to say about that fight?
To the source. What's that?
Is there anything you want to say about that fight?
I'm looking forward to it if it happens. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. There. Look at that. Look at that stare. Look at that stare. I love Demetrius, congratulations on a phenomenal year. What a year it has been for you. 2 great wins. You break the record. You pull up the submission of a lifetime. Unbelievable stuff. I called it. I said before the year was going to happen that you were going to do all of this. So I'm happy to be proven right once again, and happy to see you at the top of the sport still for another year. And I'm expecting the same come this time next year. Thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. And how about Skype now? Each and every time I'm expecting this, by the way. All right. No more phone calls. No more crappy service. I'm expecting this type of access to you.
Well, we'll make sure. I'll do the best of my ability to make it happen. Obviously, you got to thank Destiny because she's taking the kids to school right now. I took the time off to do this for you, everyone, and the MMA fans out there. Not the bitter trolls out there, just the good ones.
Yes, thank you very much. And what a moment we had back in May, June when you went on. I mean, it's been a great year for both of us together on this. You were in Hawaii. You called it. We'll leave it at that. Thank you, DJ. Congrats on a great year, my man.
Hey, Pearl. Have a good night, brother.
You too. There he is, the one and only Demetrius Johnson, my 2017 Male Fighter of the Year winner. And yes, if you go back to last year's show, when we were doing our bold predictions, I looked ahead and I said that I do believe that in 2017, DJ would win the Fighter of the Year award. And lo and behold, in my opinion, he has done enough. Now, this is not a knock on Robert Whittaker. This is certainly not a knock on Max Holloway. In fact, initially I had it. I had it for both Holloway and DJ. I was going to give out 2 awards. I was going to cut it down the middle. But then in the end, I said, I can't sit on the fence. That's no fun. So in the end, I went with him pulling off that submission and then him breaking the record, tipped the scales in his favor. If you picked Holloway, I was just kidding earlier. If you picked Holloway, you're not crazy. And if you picked Whittaker, you're not crazy, by the way. You really aren't. If you picked anything other than DJ winning the submission of the year, he is my 2017 submission of the year winner. There you see the picture by the great Esther Lynn. That's crazy. That is absolute crazy. That should be unanimous. That should be 100% of the votes in his favor. But Holloway, Whittaker, very strong years. All 3 of them were 2-0. All 3 of them champs at the end of the year. All 3 of them great wins over top contenders. In the end, though, I go with history. I go with the great submission. I pick Demetrius Johnson. New York Rick, he picked Max Holloway. And it seemed like most of you agree with him. I think you're all crazy. I'm just kidding. Okay. That's Male Fighter of the Year and also Submission of the Year. And we'll go back to New York Rick because I want him to talk a little more about his pick for Male Fighter of the Year. But let's transition here for a second. I talked about how hard it was to pick Male Fighter of the Year. I talked about the candidates and the years that they had. When it came to Female Fighter of the Year, I thought that this was one of, if not the easiest picks to make, along with the Submission of the Year winner. Some of the names considered. Nico Montano, she wins the Ultimate Fighter. She becomes the first ever women's flyweight champion. Great year for her. Who saw that coming? Who knew Nico Montano this time last year, right? I mean, that's just phenomenal. You become a champion, first ever in UFC history in that division. You win the Ultimate Fighter. You beat a lot of highly ranked fighters, respected fighters. Great year. She was in the running. She's honorable mention. Tisha Torres ends the year very strong, had a very good year, came back. She was on my short list. Of course, Cynthia Calvillo should be considered as well. Yes, she ends the year with a loss, but you go 4-1 in 2017. You go 3-1 in the UFC. You start your UFC career 3-0. I think you should be considered as well. So Cynthia Calvillo was on the list. Cris Cyborg had a great year. In fact, what a roller coaster it was. This time last year, she's provisionally suspended. This time last year, we don't know if she'll ever fight again in the UFC. This time last year, she's sitting around watching two other women fight for the inaugural featherweight title, and her future very much in doubt. She ends the year as the reigning defending featherweight champion. She wins the belt in July against Tanya Eminger. She comes back and successfully defends it against Holly Holm. She's on my short list. But in the end, it came down to one person. It came down to someone who went 2-0 this year. It came down to someone who finished Michelle Watterson back in April. And then it came down to someone who pulled off one of the greatest upsets, one of the greatest victories in the history of MMA, not just women's MMA, but MMA period, when she defeated Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in November at Madison Square Garden. It came down to Thug Rose Namajunas, my 2017 Female Fighter of the Year, and she is kind enough to be joining us via the magic of Skype to accept this award. Hello, Rose. How are you? Congratulations.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. 2017 Female Fighter of the Year. How does it feel? The most prestigious award in MMA, the MMA Hour Award. It is yours. 2017 Female Fighter of the Year, the easiest one to pick of all the categories. Unanimous. If anyone picks anyone else, it's absolutely insane. It's yours. How does it feel?
It feels great. I mean, I'm pretty used to like a lot times in my life where I've almost been in first place, but just didn't quite get there. And it feels great to. Oh, wait, what just happened here? Yeah, it feels great to finally just get that satisfaction of being first.
You got over the hump in a big way. You're the champ. I saw you post on Instagram. 2017 was and new. 2018 is and still. Before we get to that, let me ask you about, like, when I ask you, like, when you, like, in 30, 40 years, you have grandchildren, you're sitting around by the fire, they come up to you and they say, Grandma Rose, what was 2017 like for you? How would you describe this year?
It was a huge, I guess, turnaround from 2016. 2016 was very, even though it was, had a lot of success, there was a lot of challenges and, things I had to get over. And I think 2017 is just a turning point for me. Everything started to fall into place. Relationships got better, just throughout my entire life, family and friends and things have been more stable in my life. And so I've been a lot happier and stuff. And I think that has reflected onto my career a lot. So, yeah. It's been a
Be
great
honest
year.
with me. If I asked you this time last year, so like January 2nd, 2017, right? You're coming off the loss. There, you talked very openly earlier this year about the stuff you and Pat were dealing with. Like, did you really foresee this? Are you somewhat shocked that this all has happened in the span of 365 days? Did you really think by the end of the year that you'd be champion?
Yeah, I definitely knew that there was times where, I didn't know for sure, like, this is how it's going to happen, but I had a strong feeling that it would. Everything was, even though there was a lot of challenges that I had to get over and stuff, the stars seemed to kind of align for me. Certain blessings were, and people that were brought into my life, one just for example, that just popped into my head, like Valentina Shevchenko and her team coming into town was a huge help for me, and just getting to know them was awesome. So, just like little things like that, it had proved to be like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And, it's just kind of my destiny, I feel.
It's been 2 months since you won the belt. Can you say definitively that your life has changed? Like, you feel a difference in your life?
I mean, I think we've been sitting around trying to figure out what's different. And I think that's what's different,
Okay.
It's just like, there's not really much that has changed, We've gotten some opportunities that have, like, come by us, but not nothing really that's just, like, not what I kind of envisioned. It would be, like, all kinds of crazy and stuff, It's just, I've had a lot of time to just sit at home and just relax. Even though, like, I'm, like, sick right now and stuff, but I don't know.
Well, you deserve the time
We're
off.
getting ready to leave. What's up?
Where are you going?
Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. We're going to hopefully, if I don't if I don't cough up a lung, we're going to UFC 220, and then yeah, victory tour, media tour for that. And then JJ Aldrich, she has a fight in Missouri, so we Pat's gonna be cornering her for that. And then hopefully, well, we're going to LA as well.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I envision a scenario or a scene where every night before going to bed, you, Pat, and Mishka sit down and rewatch the fight, the win. How many times have you watched that fight?
Oh man, a lot.
Okay.
Too many.
That's good.
Yeah.
Keep watching. And that's what I envision. And so not only did you win my Female Fighter of the Year, you also win the Upset of the Year award. And the Upset of the Year is an interesting one because, like, I remember last year I gave it to Michael Bisping, and he's like, well, screw all of you. It's not an upset to me. I thought I was going to beat Luke Rockhold. When someone says you win the Upset of the Year award, do you take that as a compliment or is it an insult? I'm always curious how people take that.
No, I think it's cool. I think Joanna, she was like the most dominant female, she was going down as, she was on her way to becoming like bigger than Ronda, in terms of her accomplishments and stuff. So to me, I think that it's just a testament to how great she was, and the fact that I beat her, I mean, that's just awesome. I don't think that people were necessarily sleeping on me. I just think that, she was definitely very impressive.
Yeah. I also think, by the way, that was a pretty easy one. And then you win 3 for me. You won 3 awards for me this past year, Rose. And this is my favorite category of them all. It's a very unique one to this particular show and award. It's the feel-good moment of the year. And it happened right after the win. And it happened in the cage, what you said in the cage and your reaction and what you said to Joe Rogan and just the whole thing. I mean, for people who had been following you for so long and knew the story of you and Pat and knew what you've been through to get to this point, you try not to get emotional covering the sport. You try not to, pull for people or you want to always be unbiased, right, and neutral. But I think speaking for everyone, we were all so happy for you. And it was so cool to go online like seconds later and just see how everyone was just so happy for you. And I think last year was a weird year in MMA, and there was a lot of bad things and there was a lot of confusing things and a lot of things not to be proud of. And you kind of gave everyone hope that, the sport is still okay and that it's still moving in the right direction. There's still good people in the sport. And so that's my feel good moment of the year, what you said and how you received the belt after winning it at UFC 217. So there's 3 awards for you. And I don't know how you feel about that looking back on it. How does it make you feel?
I think it's cool because, like me saying that, this belt don't mean nothing. It's not really that it doesn't mean anything. It's just, it doesn't mean as much if you're just an asshole. You know what I mean? And so I like to think, me being the best in the world, it doesn't mean that much to me if I'm not a good person at the end of the day, and that if I'm not setting a good example for other people to be better to each other. I think that it's like, what's the point of being the best in the world if you scratch and claw your way to the top and you push everybody down instead of lifting everybody else up with you? I think that's more important, is to be a good person. So definitely, getting the belt, that is a bucket list kind of item for myself, and it's good for my own ego, to be able to say that I'm the best in the world now. Like, that's awesome. But to try and set a better example for other people, I think is very crucial for me. Just being able to go walk outside and feel comfortable that, the majority of people are going to be nice to each other, because there's nonstop, violence going on, or just people with bad attitudes and things like that. That's just really annoying. And I think martial arts can really, I think it can be a great tool for people for people to learn martial arts and learn more about it, to teach people how to be more respectful to each other and be nicer and stuff like that.
What's amazing about that moment? It happened only 2 months ago, and people are still talking about the win. But doing this show every week and talking to so many fighters, I've heard more people reference what you said in the cage afterwards and how you handled yourself than the actual victory. Like I've heard it come up so many times from from the Francis Ngannous of the world, like people saying like, that's the way I want to be, that's the way I want to act as champion. Have you heard the same?
I've definitely seen more people, more fighters, be more respectful to each other. As of recently, I think, there's been people that have been more nice to each other. There's been, still there's always
Yes.
gonna be, jerks,
Yeah.
whatever. So, but I think the overall tone of things has shifted a bit.
Great. Well done on that. Last thing before I let you go, this is more a look back at last year, but I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about 2018. Of course, you're the champion. You want to remain the champion. Is there anything you could tell us about the next time we'll see you in there? Any plans yet?
We're still trying to, get together with like a specific plan. We don't have any like fight lined up or anything like that. But I think that, now holidays are over with, all the craziness is done with. I think I'll be getting back in the gym and start training and stuff like that. And hopefully we'll have some more solid news coming up soon. But right now there's still a lot of things that I need to take care of, just business wise and everything like that.
Is there someone that you've zeroed in on that you think will be first up for you as champion, or not yet?
Right now it kind of seems like the three options. Like for me, who is the scariest, person that I could fight? I think that would be cool. To me, what sticks out as of right now is Jessica Andrade. But at the same time, a rematch with Joanna would be great too. But I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the three options right now would be Joanna, or the winner of Jessica Andrade versus Tisha.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think should challenge?
I think because she was dominant for so long, because she had the belt for so long, I like to see a champion get another crack just as a sort of not like if DJ lost his next fight, I'd like to see him. You know what I mean? I'd like to see him. I think if you're a champion for one fight, it's a little different. But I do understand what you said. Like it was so dominant and it was so one-sided. I understand for you, it's kind of hard to, recreate all of that. I think the fight that's the biggest, that makes the most money, and that's sort of the era that we're living in now, is the Joanna fight. I think she's done enough to deserve it. So if I were in charge, if I was Mick Maynard, I'd probably side with that one. I think that's the biggest fight. And I think your buildup was a lot of fun for fans because you guys are such different person. I mean, we didn't have a face-off of the year award, but I would give it to you as well for the one where you gave her the prayer and all that. I mean, that was incredible stuff. So yeah, I think that's how I'd lean.
Denver, and where the UFC was born, and bring it back here, and we have a big, huge show for that.
Now we're talking. Now, 25th anniversary, right? That would be that's a great idea in November. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. November of 2018 will be 25 years. That's amazing. Well, congratulations to both you, Pat, the rest of your family on a fantastic year. So you win my female fighter, you win my feel-good moment of the year, you win my upset of the year. Also, my producer, New York Rick, also gave you female fighter and upset. So that's 5 awards here from the MMA Hour, and I'll create a new one just right here. Face off the year, you win that as well. So let's make it 6. Why the hell not? Feel better. Yes, well done. Way to kill it this year, Rose. Very happy for you. Hope you feel better, and hopefully we'll see you out there in Boston at UFC 220. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. There she is, Thug Rose Namajunas, the UFC Strawweight Champion. She wins my female fighter of the year. She wins my upset of the year. She also wins my feel-good moment of the year. Next year, face-off is that's a good one. I like that, face-off of the year. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't really see that. I mean, a lot of these you don't see, but that's a good. I feel like we talked about that. Did we talk about that last year? Maybe photo of the year kind of works, under that umbrella as well. But face-off, she would be in the running for. In the running for that one. All right, so that's been a lot of fun. It's amazing. I wanted to have the male and female fighter of the year winner, and then all of a sudden I realized these are multiple winners. So we'll go back and give you some of our thoughts, and also our honorable mentions and how we got to these picks. But I thought it was cool to give them all of the awards in one shot. I think that's a lot of fun. So that's male fighter of the year. That's female fighter of the year. We're going to move along now to the fight of the year. And this was a tricky one. There were a couple ones that were on my short list. In fact, initially, I was thinking, believe it or not, of going with Jones DC too. I thought that was a great fight. I was on the edge of my seat. I was riveted. I was nervous. There was a lot of intrigue. It was a entertaining fight. It was a remarkable finish. The Cormier knockout, all that and more. But I do believe that what happened afterwards to John Jones kind of takes it out of the running. So I took it off my list. Other ones that I considered: Yancy Medeiros against Alex Oliveira, a fantastic fight at UFC 218. Also that night, Justin Gaethje and Eddie Alvarez. That was a fight that had a lot of buzz, a lot of hype going into it, and it lived up to it. That was a great fight. Another fight that I thought was fantastic: GSP Bisping. That was a phenomenal fight. And like the Jones DC fight, not a lot of barroom brawling, so to speak, not a lot of, fighting in a phone booth, but riveting, a great finish, 3 rounds, all that and more. Lando Venata against David Tamor. That was a great fight back in March, I believe, UFC 209. Dustin Poirier against Jim Miller at UFC 208. How about that fight? How about Darren Elkins and Mirsad Bektik? How about TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt? How about Cris Cyborg and Holly Holm? How about Brandon Gertz against Derek Campos? There were a lot of great picks this year. But in the end, I went with a fight that happened in July. I went back to my emotions that night, watching that fight at the T-Mobile Arena, seeing it play out, seeing it go back and forth, seeing both men punch each other with everything they had and refusing to go down, seeing the ups and downs, at one point thinking one guy was going to win, other point thinking another guy was going to win. In the end, Justin Gaethje beat Michael Johnson in what I thought was the 2017 Fight of the Year, and we are kind enough right now to be joined by the one and only Justin Gaethje. Justin, how are you? Congratulations on winning the Fight of the Year, I should say, award.
Yeah, thank you. Almost Fighter of the Year.
Yes. You think that if you win that fight against Eddie Alvarez, you win the Fighter of the Year?
Probably. Number 5 and number 4, take them out, coming in, probably.
Okay, well, let's talk about the positive. It came down to me to 3 fights. It came down to you versus Michael Johnson. It came down to Yancy Medeiros against Alex Oliveira. And it came down to you versus Eddie Alvarez. If you were in charge, what are you picking as the Fight of the Year?
I think you got it right. I think me and Johnson was the best Fight of the Year. He wobbled me twice bad. And, I came back and finished him. He'd never been finished before. Newcomer coming to the UFC, a lot of unanswered questions. So, it had everything it needed to have to be Fight of the Year, I think.
How many times have you watched that fight?
After it happened, I probably watched it like 8 times.
Yeah. You enjoy watching it?
Yeah, I did. I enjoy watching the whole show pretty much. I like to get home and watch it on my TV. I didn't get this last one on TV, so I haven't got to watch it on like a real TV yet. But my phone is doing just well.
Were you nervous going into that fight because it was your debut? Are you the kind of guy who gets nervous?
No, I was as stupid as it sounds, and every fighter's going to call me a liar because I would call myself a liar. But no, I was so confident in my preparation and my skills and my skill set that I was ready. I said it before I lost. I didn't care if I lost. So, that's one thing that I think fighters are scared of is losing. Maybe, like I said, maybe I'll be scared of that next time. But, I wasn't scared of losing necessarily. I knew my preparation was there. I knew my skills were there. And, it was. I love fighting in Las Vegas. I hope I fight in Las Vegas many times in the future.
Okay, so you won my Fight of the Year. I think a lot of people picked that fight. I saw some others pick Medeiros Oliveira. I saw some others pick you versus Eddie Alvarez. It's crazy that you're in, the finalists for 2 fights of the year. I also gave you my round of the year, and this one was really tough, but I went with round 2 against Michael Johnson. Same fight, round 2, the round in which you finished him. Because people forget, you go back to that round, and I rewatched it a couple days ago. I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, he had you rocked there at the beginning. You really came back almost from the depths of a finish, right? He had you seriously rocked at the beginning of that round.
I'll never be able to answer the question to myself how I didn't go to sleep when he hit me with that left hand.
Wow.
I don't understand it. I still don't understand it.
Okay, so of the choice, because round 1 could have been round of the year, round 2, all 3 rounds against Eddie. Did I get this one right? Because this was a tough one. Even the Medeiros, the round 1 with Medeiros and Oliveira.
Round two was a great. Round 1 of the Medeiros and round 2 wasn't very good, but round 1 was really good at that fight.
Yeah.
That would have been a good choice. But yeah, I think it had the same things. I got really rocked and then came back and finished him. So yeah, it has everything that makes us fans of MMA love to watch the sport. It's what it had.
Do you remember the final seconds of that fight against Michael Johnson where it seemed like he was going to go down and not go down, and then he finally goes down? Are you talking to yourself? Are you saying, like, please just go away, let's end this? Like, what are you saying? Do you remember any of that?
I remember, the one thing I ever see now that I got my eyes fixed, these last 2 fights, I'm able to see facial expressions in a fight. And yeah, I could see, I could see him, like he was over it. He wanted out. And yeah, it was just a matter of time. But no, I never had a thought process. Just, don't get too overzealous really, because that's when I'm going to get in trouble and take another big left hand. I didn't want to eat another one of those left hands. That's for sure. So yeah, it was good. It was perfect. I remember being there and just remembering pretty much a culmination of events, everything coming together, and and then he dropped, and right when they get the whole process after the fight, going and doing the interview, it was just such an adrenaline rush. My eyes were all dilated, they were all worried, but I've done some research. I'm pretty sure that was my adrenaline just shooting through my veins. So yeah, it was a good time, and it's a memory I'll never forget.
When did you get your eyes fixed?
I got it fixed probably like a year ago.
Okay, and you notice a difference in terms of like how you fight or how it helps you fight?
No, just in things that I noticed, like facial expressions, the brightness of the lights, are really the only 2 things that I've noticed now since I've got my eyes fixed.
And I'm just curious, Michael Johnson, you've faced a lot of great fighters, hard hitters. Is he the hardest hitter you've ever faced? As far as punching is concerned?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Paul Amino actually hit harder than he did.
Oh, really?
I'll still give him credit. Yeah, I mean he threw. Michael's awkward timing, awkward angles. Really fast. But yeah, he doesn't have a lot of. There's weight behind it, but there's not a ton of weight behind his punches. But yeah, Paul Amino, he throws them from starts at the ground, and the power runs to his hands, and yeah, he hits hard as heck. So
incredible.
He knows how to punch, that's for sure. I would say it's him. Eddie Alvarez knees the hardest.
Okay, interesting. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Our producer New York Rick, I believe New York Rick, did you give Justin Gaethje and Michael Johnson the fight of the year?
I did indeed.
You did indeed. Now, what about your round of the year? Did you give it to Justin Gaethje?
I did not.
Wow. What about that? Who did you give it to? Tell us.
I'll reveal later.
Go. Tell him. He deserves to know.
I gave it to a fight from Invicta, actually.
Invicta? Okay.
Callie Robbins versus Sharon Jacobson. And if you haven't seen it...
I mean, this is a hipster pick if I ever heard one.
No. You watch it and you tell me.
Justin, have you seen this fight that he's referring to?
No, I haven't seen it. I have to go watch it.
Go watch it. Callie Robbins versus Sharon Jacobson. It's short. It's less than a minute, but it's incredible.
Wait, so you gave the round of the year to a 60-second fight?
I did.
Oh, come on.
I did.
What is this guy? Unbelievable.
A few years ago, you'll remember I gave Whittaker and I forget who. Yeah. The 2-minute fight round of the year. Listen, go watch it and then tell me.
Where was Gaethje Johnson on your list?
Number 2.
Okay.
But I did have Justin again in promo of the year later in the show, and we'll show it on video.
Which promo? Tell him.
Justin's quotes from the summer kickoff press conference was my promo of the year.
Wow. Do you remember this, Justin?
I do remember. Yeah, that was my first event with UFC. I don't know how I killed it in the promo department, but
why did you pick this?
We'll show it later. Okay. Well, Michael sets him up. He talks about coming to kill somebody, and Justin had an interesting reaction when Michael Johnson said he was coming to kill him.
You remember this, Justin? You remember this?
I want to die.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
I said, please make my wish come true.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. What a year for you, Justin. Let me ask you right before I let you go. Any plans yet for 2018? What's on the schedule? What do you got? What's your plan?
Get in shape again.
Okay.
Do it again.
Any fight plans? Any wishes?
No, I don't have any. Nope.
You're taking a break,
I don't
right? A
care.
little bit of a break?
Yep. Yeah, I'm taking a break. Snowboarding, golfing, hunting. Couple things I couldn't do while I'm in camp. And then back to it. I'm sure I'll get the itch sooner rather than later. I said I wanted to wait around until June, July. But I'm sure I'll get the itch sooner.
You have an opponent in mind or too soon?
It's too soon, but we'll see how things play out. I want to beat up Michael or whatever his name is, Kevin Lee. That's who I really want to beat up.
Really? Why him?
I don't know. I just like punching loudmouths in the face.
Okay. All right. That's a great fight. I like that fight.
Quite cool himself.
Yeah. Have you had any run-ins with him backstage or anything?
No. First and only time I met him, I was nice, and then he talked shit and said I was fanboying over him. He doesn't know what just showing people respect is. But yeah, so I'll never show him respect again. That's for sure.
Where did you see him?
At the summer kickoff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That
Yeah.
kickoff presser.
When he had the whole thing with Michael Chiesa.
Yeah. I had no idea who he was.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like a kung fu star. I thought he was a movie star.
All right. Well, I love that idea. Are you a big resolution guy? Are you big like, oh, this year I'm going to do this and that? I don't feel like you are.
No, I try to just do better than yesterday.
All right. Well, you had a great year. Congratulations, Justin.
What's the resolution?
I just want to be a better person and a better father. That's all.
That's a good one.
And I want to cover the sport better.
I think you do all right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Remember around this time last year, I appreciate that very much. I saw you in Detroit. You remember? Not Detroit, Toronto. We were sitting in the stands in Toronto. You weren't even in the UFC yet. You've come along a very long way in 365 days.
Yeah, I came up to you to do an interview. I think.
Yeah. No one even knew who you were back then. Just kidding.
Still don't.
No, now you're like a fan, like you're like a cult hero now in the UFC. It's amazing. Do you feel like your life has changed?
I agree. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it has. You're one of the fan favorites.
The UFC absolutely. I mean, they're the hype machine.
Yeah,
they're good at what they do. I mean, yeah, a lot of things have changed, but at the end of the day, still living in a one-bedroom apartment, still hanging out, so it's all good.
Well, it was a great year. Congratulations to you and your team. We just had Rose on. She won 3 awards. She won Female Fighter of the Year, Upset of the Year, Feel Good Moment of the Year. Your team is killing it these days. You guys are, and your coach deserves a lot of credit as well. Trevor Whitman.
Who won Coach of the Year for you guys?
I can't get into that just yet. We'll wait on that. But he was certainly on the short list. Yeah, he's on the short list. He had a great year, no doubt about it.
He hasn't got years that he's deserved it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I certainly agree with that. 100%. He's had a great year. The whole team's had a great year. Congratulations to you on a phenomenal year. Looking forward to what's next for you in 2018. And thank you for doing this on short notice. I appreciate it, Justin.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
All right, there he is, the one and only Justin Gaethje, as my Diamond MMA sperm thing fell. Did you see that? Did you see it fall? I don't know what that means, but I'll just leave it there. All right. So that was a lot of fun, right? So we had Demetrius on, we had Thug Rose on, and then Justin Gaethje, who happened to be teammates. Is Trevor Whitman going to win our Coach of the Year award? We shall see. Let's bring back Mr. New York Rick, who I think we interrupted his lunch earlier. I mean, what was going on over there?
Look,
what's happening?
You got to get him in when you can.
Jeez, get it in while the show is live? What is going on?
There was a lot of stuff going on before the show. Before.
Well, just grab a sandwich. I mean, does anyone really want to hear you chew while Justin Gaethje is on? But in any event,
not exactly my best moment.
Yes. We'll add that to the highlight reel. Okay, so let's actually reset here if we can.
Sure.
All right? Let's go back to Male Fighter of the Year.
Right.
So
my correct choice.
Because I went down the short list, I went through who my pick was last year. Explain your thought process, how you got to Max Holloway.
I mean, I think it's obvious. The 2 wins that Max Holloway had were the best 2 wins when measured up against any of the other contenders for this award. Jacare and Romero, both great. Demetrius had Borg and Wilson Hayes. But if you beat Jose Aldo twice, you're going to win my Fighter of the Year award. And it comes down to simple math on that. He took out the longtime featherweight kingpin and did it twice and made both look relatively easy. Max Holloway, Fighter of the Year, the only selection. Unless you predicted last year that it would be Demetrius and then can choose Demetrius, to make that come true.
Are you on it? I'm not going to knock the pick. It was down to them two.
Can't be.
You can't. You're knocking the DJ pick? That's crazy.
It's Holloway. It's Holloway.
Okay, sure, but he was. I mean, it's 1 and 2, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's Demetrius. I don't know, Whittaker or Demetrius. It's hard for me to choose one or the other because I think both had sensational.
You don't give a nod to the submission. You don't give a nod to making history. That all happened this year. Greatest submission, breaks a record.
There is a nod to history,
and what he did in a fight, and then submitting the black belt Wilson Hayes. Come on,
Jacare and Romero though. I think those are tougher wins.
Those are my 3.
Are better. I think those are better wins than Hayes or Borg.
All right.
So I'll say this: the history gets a nod for sure. Demetrius is definitely on my short list, but I think Holloway is the obvious. I cannot take it from Holloway. I think it's Holloway, then Whittaker, and Demetrius somewhere in that order.
Yeah.
And then there's really not another one after that I think is in that same category.
There were others, but it's kind of hard not to give it to someone who won a belt or defended the title.
Yeah,
I think RDA deserves to be mentioned. I think Volkan Ozdemir deserves to be mentioned.
But there's other categories where they fit much better than Fighter. I feel like these are the guys.
Yep.
These are the 3.
Yep.
Did you say your pick for last year was Demetrius, which you made come true?
You mean my
prognostication?
Yeah. Who did you say it was?
I said Conor McGregor. No. That wasn't my prediction. That was my last year's pick. Who was your last year's
I said
pick?
Michael Bisping.
Michael Bisping.
Yeah,
that's right.
Conor was in the mix there with Stipe, with Cody Garbrandt, but I went with Bisping for the 3 wins. Right, he had the win over Anderson Silva as well.
Yep.
And becoming champion, defending the belt, etc.
That was a very tough one. Last year I thought was tough. This year I thought Holloway earned it.
All right, so I picked Demetrius. You picked Max Holloway for Male Fighter of the Year. We both agreed on Rose being Female Fighter of the Year.
For sure, Thug Rose. Easy pick.
Easy pick. Maybe one of the easiest picks of them all.
But then the grouping underneath her is all kind of lumped together. Like there were a lot of good.
So I mentioned
notables.
Cyborg. I mentioned Calvillo. I mentioned Tisha Torres. I mentioned Nico Montano. Were there any other fighters?
Those were all the ones I had, except I had one more, which was Felice Herrig. I thought had a really,
pick.
really good year.
Yep.
3-0, Grasso, Kish, and Courtney Casey. Three pretty big wins.
Yep.
And I thought was a good standout. But the other, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4 that you said, Calvillo, Montano, Cyborg, Torres, those were my other fighters on the list.
Okay. So we agreed on that. We also talked, by the way, about Submission of the Year, which was Demetrius Johnson and Ray Borg, the Mighty Whizbar, I
Correct.
think what we're calling it.
Yeah.
We agreed on that. Let me give you some of my honorable mentions, and then you step in as well. Brett Johns against Joe Soto.
Yep.
The calf slicer, just the second one ever. It happened in December, 30 seconds. We had him on the program afterwards. Brian Ortega submitting Cub Swanson. Valentina Shevchenko and Juliana Pena. Those were, I think this year actually had a lot of great submissions. Those were a few that came to mind. Did you have any others that you wanted to throw out there?
I had quite a few, actually. Okay. I thought this was a great year for submissions and knockouts, I think both. OSP, 2 Von Prue chokes. Sorry, I was about to say Von Flu, but let's give it the proper respect. 2 Von Prue chokes this year over Marcos Rogerio de Lima and Yushin Okami. Alexei Oleinik with the first Ezekiel choke in the UFC. At UFC Fight Night 103 over, I think it was Victor Pesta. Yuri Alcantara, his knee bar on Luke Sanders, where he was down 2 rounds in the fight, pulled a knee bar out of nowhere. Friend of the show, Brian Kelleher, making his debut, submitting Yuri Alcantara, who's on the list for being good at submissions.
Yes.
Brian pulled off the upset submission. That was a huge one. Then there were a few from some outside organizations that are notable just because of the nature. One of them I featured on Rick's Picks earlier this year, Grigory Popov with a Gogo Plata at MFP 214.
I'm surprised you didn't pick one of those for your submission, like just to go full hipster.
Listen, this whole hipster thing is overplayed.
I don't even know if I saw your pick.
Just because I watch more MMA than the UFC doesn't mean
here we go.
that my picks are hipster. Let's see. Diego Brandao had a helicopter armbar at Fight Nights Global 58. That was really, really cool. Rico DiSculio had a Peruvian necktie at CES MMA 46. These were the ones I was able to find video of. There was a lot more. And shout out to Caposa, the number one guy on the MMA Twitter game, who compiles all these knockouts, all these submissions. I used his list to find some of these. All the ones I could find video of and actually analyze and see that they were legit. I did mention Askar Askarov had a twister at ACB 58. There were a few like other kind of tricky submissions like that. But Demetrius Johnson, the Mighty Whiz Bar, no doubt about it, submission of the year.
Okay. So we agreed on that one. Also, let's just recap the other ones that we gave out.
Do we want to give our last year's picks for those other categories as well?
Oh, yeah, sure.
My female fighter of the year last year was Amanda Nunes.
Mine was Amanda Nunes.
My submission of the year was Nate Diaz, rear naked choking Conor McGregor.
My submission of the year was Ben Rothwell. Remember that one?
I had that 2 years ago. Didn't I?
No, against Josh Barnett. The go-go choke.
You had that? I thought I had that. Wow, that's crazy.
What do you mean 2 years ago? It happened last year.
I forget. I thought I picked that at some point in the thing. That's crazy.
Yeah, it happened in January of last year, so it feels like a long time ago. So that was submission of the year. Other ones, by the way, for female fighter, other notables last year were Jacek, Andrade, Pena, Cyborg, Lee, Pennington. Those were some other ones. Okay, let's talk about fight of the year here. Let's just recap that because we had Mr. Gaethje on. I had Gaethje Johnson. You had Gaethje Johnson, right?
Correct.
Some of my honorable mentions, I went through them earlier, so let me give you the opportunity to mention your fight of the year notables. What did you have there?
I had obviously Yancy Medeiros versus Alex Oliveira. Luis Smolka versus Tim Elliott. If you don't remember, that was a back and forth grappling affair. It was really, really fun. Jessica Andrade versus Angela Hill. One of the best strawweight fights, I think, not even of the year, but ever. Yeah, it was really fun. David Tamor versus Lando Venata. Both of those guys going toe-to-toe, throwing not only technical strikes, but exciting striking. That was a really fun matchup. Whittaker versus Romero. 5 rounds of what could be 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there of the best middleweights on the planet. TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. A shorter fight, but I think both of them had moments in round 1 and 2 respectively that made that worthy.
Yep.
Justin Gaethje versus Eddie Alvarez lived up to the hype. That was one of the most hyped fights I can remember, and it lived up to it, which is insane. Eddie Alvarez versus Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier versus Jim Miller. So you could have any combination of Eddie or Dustin and their fights they had this year. They were all good. Chase Sherman versus Rashad Coulter, which was a good old-fashioned kind of heavyweight slugfest. And then Derek Campos versus Brandon Gertz from Bellator, another slugfest, a bloody one that I really, really liked. And last one, Invicta FC 21, Amy Montenegro, Celine Haga. If people don't remember, that was the 3-round fight where at the buzzer, Celine Haga pulled off a submission, but the ref and Montenegro went out, and the referee determined that she wasn't out when the round ended, and it was all controversial, but that fight was absolutely incredible to that point. 3 rounds back and forth. Those were some of my notables.
Last year, it was Condit Lawler. For me
as well.
And if you recall, that was the first event of the year for the UFC.
That's right.
And it also won my round of the year. The 5th round won my round of the year. And so it felt like it was so long ago, but on the first night of the year, It ended up winning my fight in round of the year. My round of the year this year, as I said earlier, Gaethje Johnson round 2. It starts off with, and what a great quote there. He is so great at like verbalizing his thoughts. He says he still doesn't know how he didn't go down from that left hand.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch it, and I went back and watched that fight, I went back and watched the Medeiros-Oliveira fight because those were my final two.
Yep.
At the beginning of the fight, it's just amazing how he doesn't go down, and then he ends up actually winning. So that's why I gave it to that round 2, Gaethje Johnson.
I feel like that phrase right there could be the story of Justin Gaethje's career.
Yeah.
It's amazing how he didn't go down. Every single fight is like that.
But you didn't agree.
I did not.
I don't even
Callie-
remember what your pick was.
Callie Robbins versus Sharon Jacobson, Invicta FC 25. 42 seconds, the entire length of the fight.
How could that be?
It packed more in those 42 seconds than any of these other fights. If you're out there and you're about to call me a hipster, before you do that, find that 42 seconds and tell me if you don't agree. It started with Jacobson just brutalizing Robbins on the feet. It looked like it was about to be a beatdown of the year contender. Jacobson, a stout wrestler, goes into a toss, throws Robbins to the ground. As Robbins is going to the ground, she starts locking up a submission and gets an armbar on Jacobson. It was the fastest swing of momentum I've ever seen in my entire life, and my round of the year for this year. It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts.
Better than
Gaethje
Johnson.
42 seconds of madness. You will not find a better minute of action. And again, like I said, who was that? Who was it that John Lineker had the crazy exchange with? Hold on, let me.
Recently?
This one. No. It was a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh man, I forget now.
It was
I need to find this fight.
Francisco Rivera.
Yes.
Lineker and Rivera. 2 minutes long, but my clear choice for round of the year that year as well. That is the pick. If you can make some more action happen, it doesn't need to go full 5 minutes for me to pick it. In fact, some of my other mentions are my other notables, or actually only one more of my other notables didn't go the full 5 rounds.
Who else did you?
The rest, I obviously had Justin Gaethje and Michael Johnson, round 2, insane. Yancy Medeiros versus Alex Oliveira, round 1.
Yeah, me too.
Dustin Poirier versus Anthony Pettis, round 2. If you don't remember, that's the one with all the crazy grappling transitions. They were going back and forth. The elbow that opened up Pettis happened in that round. It was absolutely mad. Eddie Alvarez versus Dustin Poirier, round 2. That's the one where they were taking turns rocking each other that led to the controversy. And then one from Cage Warriors, 86, Nathaniel Wood versus Josh Reed. This one made the rounds. Absolutely insane, the change of momentum that happened there. And that round 1, because it didn't go the full distance, also made my list. My last year pick, I know you remind me, you had something from Condit Lawler. I had Holloway and Lamas from 199, the one where Holloway threw down the gauntlet and Lamas and him went to war.
I remember saying that I was a little bit distracted that night. Yeah. Because of the impending doom that was to come.
Extenuating circumstances.
Also, you didn't mention Mirsad Bektic and Darren Elkins, round 3, the comeback round. That was crazy.
I didn't feel like that. Obviously, that is a notable round and because of what happens there, but I don't feel like the action leading into the finish was enough of a change of momentum to me. For my round of the year, I like to see something going back and forth a little bit. It felt like at that point, round 1 and 2 were in the books. Bektic had them, and then in round 3, Elkins started taking over, but I didn't feel like the momentum completely shifted in that round. I feel like it shifted over that fight. That's my only justification there. Clearly, that fight deserves some kind of mention or notoriety because of what Elkins was able to do in round 3.
I just watched your round of the year, by the way. It was a great fight. Yeah. Somewhat of a comeback victory, right?
She was getting destroyed.
No way that's round of the year. I mean, there's just no...
Sorry.
It's too short. It's too short.
There's no length requirement for me.
It does not hold up to some of the others that you mentioned.
No.
That is...
Sorry, disagree.
That's a homer pick. I mean, let's just call it like we see it here. That is a homer pick. That is a short... That is a great Oh, by the way, honorable mention. You may have missed this one.
Disagree.
Go to Fight Pass, and thank you for Fight Pass for allowing me to watch this right now. That is not the round of the year.
Round of the year.
I don't want to take anything away from two people who walked into a cage and fought for our entertainment because they deserve the credit, but that one does not stack up. That just doesn't stack up.
Disagree.
All right. So there you go. That's round of the year. And now let's move along. How
Sure.
about it? Let's move along now to knockout of the year.
Another very tough category.
Why don't you go first?
I had, and I think many people had, Francis Ngannou with the vicious uppercut on Alistair Overeem at UFC 218. Again, for me, this was a category where there were a ton of of notable or honorable mentions that were all very, very good and deserving, and on any other year would have been in contention. But this one stood head and shoulders above for me. It was powerful. It was devastating. It was instant. Everything about it just let me know right away that was the knockout of the year. Francis Ngannou, uppercut, Alistair Overeem, UFC 218.
Uppercut from hell. And honorable mentions?
I got a bunch. One of my favorites, Galore Bafando, throwing Charlie Ward on his head.
Yes.
The thud and just the absolute madness of that one. Marlon Moraes, the knee on Aljamain Sterling. Edson Barbosa with the flying knee against Beneil Dariush. Paul Daly from Bellator with the flying knee against Brennan Ward. Matt Brown, elbow on Diego Sanchez. Mike Perry, elbow on Jake Ellenberger. Alex Oliveira, uppercutting Ryan LaFleur. Mairbek Taisumov with a huge right hand against Felipe Silva. Holly Holm folding up Betch Correia like an accordion. Ovin St. Preux with the head kick on Corey Anderson out of nowhere. Julian Marquez against Philip Hawes on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, the one where Hawes was getting up and took the head kick. Josh Emmett, obviously, against Ricardo Lamas. And Aaron Pico against Justin Lin. Those last two were super, super clean and in contention, but Francis stands above.
Great ones. What about Taiwan Claxton? Speedy Claxton.
The other flying knee.
Remember that
right?
one when he pushed him off? Against Johnny Bonilla Bowman. So that one was on my list. That was a phenomenal knockout. That one hurt just to watch. I agreed with a lot of yours. Pico one, the Bufando one, Alexander Gustafsson and Glover Teixeira with the uppercuts. That was great. Perry Ellenberger, Paul Daly with the knockout of Brennan Ward, Marlon Moraes, and his vicious knockout of Aljamain Sterling. I really liked the Holly Holm knockout of Betch Correia.
It was great.
That was
visually, that was a beauty.
And technically as well. That was beautiful. Josh Emmett and the way in which he knocked out Ricardo Lamas just a couple of weeks ago. But in the end, I agree, it was a no-brainer. My 2017 knockout of the year winner, none other than Francis Ngannou knocking out Alistair Overeem. And in fact, there's a new layer to this knockout because they put out the promo for UFC 220, and they just showed this clip. Did you see this of Overeem with his eyes rolled back to the back of his head? I mean, it's frightening stuff. You will be hard pressed to find a cleaner knockout, a cleaner punch landing, and then a neck just like sort of like cocking back. Overeem completely out, one of the legends of the sport, and Ngannou cementing his place as the number one contender. But it was just vicious. Like when I think of knockouts, when I want to show someone just how vicious, how dangerous, how dare I say violent the sport of mixed martial arts can be, I think of Francis Ngannou knocking out Alistair Overeem. And oh, by the way, Mr. Francis Ngannou is standing by in Paris, France. He's in Paris, France to finish up his training for UFC 220. He is standing by to accept our 2017 Knockout of the Year award. Here he is, Francis Ngannou.
Hey, MMA Hour. Thank you for the Knockout of the Year award. My UFC journey have been crazy so far, and I can assure you that it's gonna be better starting by on January 20th against Stipe Miocic at UFC 220. I'm gonna blow your stream. Thank you, guys, and Happy New Year for every one of you. See you.
There he is, the winner of the MMA Hour 2017 Knockout of the Year, joining us from France, from the MMA Factory. And thank you very much to the head coach over there, Fernand Lopez, a team, by the way, that is on the rise, that are doing a lot of great things out in France. And you see none other than Mr. Ngannou, who is on the verge of fighting for the heavyweight title in one of the most anticipated fights of the year. Very good chance we're talking about that fight this time next year, maybe with the finish, maybe with Ngannou being fighter of the year, maybe with Miocic being fighter of the year. But that was very much well deserved. Last year, my knockout of the year winner was Lando Venata against John McDessie. If you recall that knockout, that was a great one. But I
had known complainer that he doesn't get love, Gerald Harris slamming Aaron Cobb, making my awards. I mean, just brutal slam. Gerald, once again, mentioning you, shouting you out for a huge knockout last year.
Yeah. He's probably going to go on like a tweet rampage here. There's a good chance that I muted him because it was getting to be too much. I'm not sure. But anyway, Francis Ngannou, thank you very much for sending that in. I know he was overcome with joy and emotion when he found out that he won the Knockout of the Year award. All right, so that's Knockout of the Year. We talked about submission earlier. Yeah. We both agreed it was DJ hitting the armbar against Ray Borg in midair. So nothing more to say there. Let's talk about Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. And I think that this was a really interesting one. I'll go first on this one.
Yep.
I look at other people's Breakthrough Fighter of the Year, and it's interesting because I feel like this is one of those things. Let me just do this 1 second. 1 second. I feel like it's one of those awards where it can, and there's a couple that fall in this category, but I feel like it's one of those awards that it can be interpreted in different ways. You know what I mean? Like, okay, what exactly, how do you quantify? It's very subjective. How do you quantify what a breakthrough fighter is, who that breakthrough fighter is? But in all honesty, I actually thought that this was a really easy pick. And I'll tell you why. And it was an easy pick because this time last year, my award winner was not a champion. This time last year, I don't think he was even on people's short list to become a champion. Like, we didn't really see a path for him to become champion. This time last year, I think that if we were talking about who champions could be in the division if the belt would change hands, I don't think people were bringing him up. This time last year, if we said that this fighter would, because we didn't know, would get matched up against Jacare Souza and Yoel Romero, there was a very good chance he wasn't winning one of those fights. And that's why I gave my 2017 Breakthrough Fighter of the Year award to one Robert Whittaker, because this time last year he wasn't the champion, and I don't think that there was a single person who could have predicted that we start 2018 with him being the champion. And oh, by the way, very good chance, you can make the case, you can make the argument that he was the fighter of the year, as we said earlier. But to me, this guy broke through. This guy wasn't even in discussions. Last year was Cody Garbrandt, who also became champion. He went from unranked to champion. And I remember, I did not think that Robert Whittaker would end the year as champion. And yes, he got it in a weird way, but I think a lot of people by the end of the day were saying, that's the real belt anyway. I don't know if I subscribe to that, but I think of a fighter who just sort of broke through the ranks, who made a name for himself, who made an impact, who became champion. I think the Jacare fight could be upset of the year. I really do. Mm-hmm. And then he pulls it off against Yoel. Just phenomenal stuff from Robert Whittaker. Other people who I considered, Tony Ferguson, Rose Namajunas, Justin Gaethje, Paulo Costa, Cynthia Calvillo, Jeremy Stevens, Josh Emmett, James Vick, Kamaru Usman, Darren Till, Colby Covington, Volkan Ozdemir, Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, and Francis Ngannou. All could be considered Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. But in the end, I went with a guy who was not really in that picture to start the year, and then, and then ended up being champ. And I don't think anyone thinks that he's a lesser champion or, not the best middleweight in the world. It's just an unbelievable year for Robert Whittaker. So he is my Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. And I know that there can be different interpretations, but I really felt strongly about this one. He wasn't even in that discussion. And now look where he is. And he is kind enough to be joining us from Australia as he prepares for UFC 221, as he prepares for his first official title defense against Luke Rockhold, my 2017 Breakthrough Fighter of the Year, Robert Whittaker. Here he is accepting that most prestigious award.
MMA Hour for Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. It's a great honor to be able to receive that award, and stay tuned. I'm going to come into 2018 really, really well.
There he is, Robert Whittaker accepting that award. And I like how so far our two video acceptance speeches have all given a nod to 2018. Like, they're on to bigger and better. And Ngannou's talking about becoming champion. Whittaker's talking about, being the fighter of the year and defending that title. But I really felt strongly about him winning that Breakthrough Fighter of the Year award. So congratulations to him. That's my pick. Your pick.
My thought process is very similar to yours. I like the idea. And last year, my pick was Cody Garbrandt. He came from, bottom of the card all the way to champion. I don't think we'll ever see somebody rise as quickly as Cody Garbrandt did from relative unknown to champion in 1 year's time. It was pretty special what he did last year. I always kind of like to follow that same trajectory like you do as well. My pick this year was not Robert Whittaker. It was Darren Till. After not fighting at all in 2016, Till started the year. Do you know where he was on the card when he fought Justin Ayari in May? Do you know where he was on the card?
How low?
How low he was on the card?
Fight past prelims?
Second fight of the night, fight past prelims. Come end of year, he was headlining against Donald Cerrone. I feel like his rise this year was meteoric, and especially in terms of profile. He's a guy that people are looking at and saying his name when as early as May, he was the second fight of the night. I think that my criteria is very similar to yours, but I think that he started at a lower place and got to traveled further than Whittaker necessarily did. I feel like Whittaker started a little bit higher and then obviously achieved much more, becoming champion.
Yeah.
But Till's distance between where he started and where he ended, I think, was the greatest of this year, and that's why Darren Till is my choice for Breakthrough Fighter of the Year.
I don't hate the pick. I certainly don't hate the pick. I just think in the end, Whittaker achieved a little more.
He did. He definitely did.
And he picked up two massive wins. I mean, I think the level of competition was a little higher. But
Sure.
but look, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, and we'll get to our predictions for this coming year if Darren Till is in the Fighter of the Year discussion for 2018.
Wouldn't shock me. And
he's certainly trending in that direction.
It's not the guy that I had my finger on to be that guy initially early on. You mentioned a lot of my other people that were in the running: Whittaker, Ozdemir, Ngannou, Covington, Carvalho. Oh, sorry. This one I don't know if you mentioned. Rafael Carvalho from Bellator.
Yep.
Ended the year with like a really bad fight against Melvin Manhoff. I'd say it's probably the worst fight I've ever seen, actually. Comes back to start the year, takes out Manhoff in what was a much more exciting fight, and then puts down Alessio Sakara. Huge turnaround for him this year. I thought that he established himself as the guy. I think at the end of last year, I was thinking, is this guy really the middleweight champion? I think he had a fantastic year and put himself back on the map. You mentioned James Vick. You mentioned Cynthia Calvillo. You mentioned Paulo Costa. I had one more, Mackenzie Dern. I think this year she made it clear, like, I'm here. This isn't just hype, that she got to step up in competition and pass the test with flying colors. I think this was a breakthrough year for her. Maybe a little bit early. Maybe next year is even more of a breakthrough.
Maybe in the
breakthrough
category.
Certainly in the running there, but I think worth some kind of mention that she had a big year. Really.
By the way, I reported yesterday that she's going to be making her UFC debut on March 3rd, UFC 222 against Ashley Yoder.
I think that's another big step up, another large jump in competition that will show where she's really at. But I think a lot of the names that we had are the same. I picked Till, you picked Whittaker. I think both great choices.
All right, so that's Breakthrough Fighter of the Year.
Did you have Garbrandt last year as well? I think you probably
did.
You had to, right?
And not only did I have Garbrandt for Breakthrough Fighter of the Year, I also had him in my Most Improved Fighter of the Year category as well, which is kind of interesting, but I thought that was appropriate since he went from unranked to champion. Let's talk about Most Improved now. And this one, much like Breakthrough, I think you can interpret it in different ways. I think that there's a lot of very, very deserving people for this award. Some names that I was considering. I was considering Derek Brunson. I was considering Kamaru Usman. I was considering Kelvin Gastelum. I was considering Darren Till. I was considering Henry Cejudo. I was considering Kevin Lee. I was considering Dustin Poirier. I was considering Rose Namajunas, who I think could very well have won the award. I was considering Santiago Ponzinibbio and also Colby Covington. I all thought that they had great years. I all thought that they made improvements as fighters. I all thought that they, took leaps as fighters. I all thought that they had successful years, all that and then some. But in the end, I went with an individual who was on no one's radar this time last year. I mean, you talk about like what Whittaker did. This is on a whole other level. He did not win the belt in 2017, but he is very close to fighting for a belt. And in a couple of weeks, he could become the undisputed champion in his weight class. I went with a guy who, prior to his debut, not a lot of people heard of. I went with a guy who fought Ovin St. Preux in his UFC debut back in February, and it was a strong decision win, but it didn't really, knock anyone's socks off. It didn't really, it was just a nice win. Okay, here's a nice little, new face at 205. Follows that up with a knockout of Misha Serkinov in May, which I think put everyone on notice. Everyone said, whoa, wait a second. Who the heck is this guy? Follows that up with a knockout in seconds of Jimmy Manoa in July. And then I think everyone believed that Volkan Ozdemir was here to stay. Came a long way in 1 year. A guy who had sort of been, like just sort of jumping around, and there was a time he was considering retirement, made the leap to the United States, went to Florida, and he has grown leaps and bounds since starting to work with Henry Hooft and the team over there in Florida. So my 2017 most improved fighter of the year is the one and only No Time Volkan Ozdemir of Switzerland. He's styling and profiling this past weekend in Las Vegas. He's wearing the Versace from head to toe, took part in his first official pre-fight press conference, and on January 20th, he meets Daniel Cormier for the UFC light heavyweight title. His name is Volkan Ozdemir. His nickname is No Time. He is my 2017 most improved fighter of the year, and he is standing by in Florida to accept said award. Here's Volkan.
Thank you, MMA Hour, for the award of Best Improved Fighter of the Year. 2017 was definitely a crazy year for me, but 2018 will be even better. I will be fighting for the belt against DC in Boston. So stay connected because it's going to be a crazy year for me.
Stay connected, my friends. Volkan Ozdemir, well done. What a great year for him. He has come a long way. Who would have thought in early 2018 that this man, the pride of Switzerland, would be fighting for a UFC title? Unbelievable stuff. He's come a long way. My pick for most improved. Your pick, Mr. New York Rick.
My pick is Kevin Lee.
Kevin Lee, okay. I don't hate it.
The reason I don't pick a guy like Volkan and think he's more appropriate for breakthrough is because I didn't even know who he was coming into 2017. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he improved because I didn't know who the hell he was.
I mean, he certainly improved from the OSP fight, but fair.
I think so, but I don't think by fight 2 he looked any different than he did by fight 3. Whatever he did was gravy for me. It was a surprise. I wasn't expecting anything. Whereas a guy like Kevin Lee, and you'll see some of my other choices, I was able to track the improvement. I saw it, and I was impressed by it, and therefore my selection. So Kevin Lee, I think 2017 was kind of emblematic of his entire career. He's talking the talk, that's for sure, but he'll also put in the work in the gym to kind of make those improvements. And over the course of his career, which has been a pretty long UFC career at this point, now, you kind of forget how long he's been fighting. This is the most complete version we saw. He fought for the title. I thought he fought admirably. Obviously, he had a staph infection that's tough to overcome. And how good Tony Ferguson is, I don't want to make excuses because I don't think he would. But I think we saw the best version of Kevin Lee, and the improvements he's been able to make not only this year, but the years previous are evident. I think he looked really, really good. Obviously, that win over Michael Chiesa was incredible. Kevin Lee, my pick, showed so much improvement this year. My pick for most improved fighter of the year. Did you do some of your other notables? Or
yeah, I did. Thanks for paying attention. But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
The fact that he ends the year on a loss, does it hurt him at all?
It doesn't hurt him because I think going into that fight, I still was confident in him as a title challenger. I think in last year, I wouldn't have said Kevin Lee is the guy that I want to see fight for the title. By the time that he had earned that title opportunity, I thought to myself, Kevin Lee had done enough and has shown improvements in his game enough that I am comfortable seeing him in a fight with Tony Ferguson. I thought that was going to be a competitive title fight. So it doesn't hurt him, in my opinion, because the improvements he made to that point were still clear to me. Even if he wasn't able to get it done, and Tony Ferguson is no joke in the cage. My other choices, Henry Cejudo. His striking continues to improve. Some of the combinations he was throwing against Wilson Hayes, mind-boggling how fast he's able to improve his striking. I saw a marked improvement this year. Thought Henry Cejudo deserves a nod. And Dustin Poirier, known kind of to this point for falling short in the big opportunities, and he'll himself say that. 2017, he didn't fight anything but big fights. Jim Miller, Eddie Alvarez, Anthony Pettis, getting it done in all of them. I thought Dustin looked really, really good this year and improved leaps and bounds. Yep. So Kevin Lee, Henry Cejudo, Dustin Poirier, but ultimately I'm going with Kevin Lee. I thought he looked fantastic this year.
I had both of those. I had all of them actually on my short list. Another one where I don't think there's a big argument. No, it's dumb. All great picks. By the way, one that we didn't mention, I think worth mentioning, mentioned her earlier. Our friend over at WMMA News mentioned her, Nico Montano, came a long way. I think this year no one really knew who she was, but maybe based on your criteria, she doesn't fall under that category because she wasn't on our radar. But certainly on the show, even starting off the show and then ending it with the championship win, she came a long way. She's the UFC's flyweight champion. So that is most improved. This is an interesting one now.
Who did you have last year?
I said I had Cody Garbrandt. Are you paying attention? What's wrong with you?
Listen, there's a lot of
lunch. What are you doing back there? I said Cody Garbrandt won my breakthrough and most improved.
Okay. That was a long time ago. Jesus. We've done a lot of talking since.
Who did you pick? You didn't.
Tim Elliott last year.
Oh yeah.
He had a huge year
because he ended the year with the tough win. DJ.
It was big. It was big for him.
That was a big year.
He was out of the UFC and then back in and showed drastic improvement.
Still doing well.
Yep.
Still going strong.
Big win.
Okay, so let's go to comeback of the year, and this is an interesting one because I think I said this at the top. This can actually be interpreted in multiple ways, and I've seen some other awards get out there, and a lot of people when they think of comeback of the year, they think of fight, which is okay. I like to sort of keep it ambiguous because I like to see where you go, and I think you can make the case for either direction. How about you go first on this one? Comeback of the year, who'd you give it to?
Comeback of the year, the one and only George St. Pierre returning to the octagon. Welterweight kingpin, comes back, makes history, makes money, and then poof, he's gone. You can't do it much better than that. Comeback of the year, George St. Pierre.
Easy.
Hard because I had to ultimately choose between fighter or fight. And my fight would have been Darren Elkins versus Mirsad Bektik, which we talked about earlier in the show. Never have you seen a guy down 2 rounds and look more out of it and then turn it around completely in round 3 against a guy in Bektik who I think is a really, really legit top prospect. So I had to ultimately choose between fighter and fight. I went with fighter, George St. Pierre.
I'm shocked that you went with fighter.
My choice. I was considering Elkins and Bektik up until the last minute, but George St. Pierre is my
Who'd you go with last year?
Ronda Rousey.
Oh my God! How did I even ask that question? Oh my God!
For the same.
Oh my God! People
now I'll say
still
this.
come up to me. That pick has soiled this award show. Thank God we're separate entities here, because anytime I mention the awards, like even this past weekend, I was talking about it to Casey and Sean, and they're like, "Oh, like can you just tell us when New York Rick is on so I can mute him?" I mean, that pick has. That you know how DC talks about the stench that he needs to get off him? That is your stench.
Now,
that is the stench.
First of all, thanks to teammates, Casey and Sean.
One of the all-time worst picks.
More evidence, as I've been saying.
No, I'll be the first to say. I'll be the first to say one of the all-time worst picks in the history of awards.
Now, the justification is the same as this pick this year.
The worst. No,
it's the same.
No,
it's the same.
GSP's comeback would not be the comeback of the year if he lost in 45 seconds.
I would still have picked it.
No.
I would still have picked it.
I wouldn't
George
allow you to
St.
pick
Pierre.
it.
I would have picked it.
There's no way.
I'm sorry. I would have picked it.
That was the worst. Okay, honestly, like you talk about it, like we talk about aging and like that may be the worst comeback in the history of comebacks. Like that's almost one where it would have been better if she stayed home. That was like the ghost of Ronda Rousey. She was a shell of her former self. She did not speak to the media. She acted like she didn't want to be there. She went in there and the first punch completely rocked her, and that was essentially the beginning of the end. How could that, the fact that they just like sort of like carted her out there, WME wanted Ronda to be there. They wanted to sell some pay-per-views at the end of the year. How could that possibly be? Why we're talking about this again, I don't know, but it's
You're
still,
going on.
It still boggles the mind.
I would have picked,
possibly
if George went in there and got rocked by Michael Bisping first round and taken out, guess what? It still would have been George St. Pierre. That's it. George St. Pierre.
So what you're saying is, here we are a year later, you still haven't learned your lesson.
George St. Pierre. Fortunately, he got it done, so there's nothing
you would have made the same
gripe
mistake.
about. I would have picked the same thing.
Unbelievable.
The justification exactly the same.
The worst.
You can't argue that the stakes don't matter.
Huh?
And that
They always matter.
yeah. So then there's a justification.
But if you don't actually like propel, if you don't actually defy
Doesn't
the
matter.
odds, if you don't actually like come back
matter.
and like
It's not the win of the year.
so it's just showing up. It's just being there. It's not what you do. It's not how you act. It's not how you like how you handle yourself. It's just showing up. And so as long as she stood in the octagon, that's it. Comeback of the year. The fact that she decided to sign on the line, take a fight, get paid, 45 seconds, see you later. That's a comeback. Like that's not inspiring. Comebacks are inspiring. What Darren Elkins did was inspiring. What GSP did was inspiring.
The result was not inspiring, but the process of coming back, the people who supported her were inspired by it.
Let me tell you about comebacks. Let me tell you about a guy named the Korean Zombie. Let me tell you about let me tell you about a guy who was on military leave and then comes back and looks the way he did back in February. Let me tell you about a girl named Roxanne Modafferi and what she's done and the comeback that she after media members said her lone UFC fight was the worst fight and she was the worst fighter in UFC history, and look what she did on this past season of The Ultimate Fighter. Let me tell you about a guy named Eddie Alvarez who could have crumbled, who could have faltered, who could have never shown up again after what happened at MSG and the year in which he had. That is a comeback. Let me tell you about a young man from a corner of the world known as Dagestan.
Time out.
Yeah.
Why not any of those over George?
No, these are my honorable mentions.
Why though?
What do you mean why? They all had great years.
The circumstances matter though.
Yeah, exactly. But they all won.
Roxy
as did
lost.
George. No. Well, honorable mentions. Cynthia Calvillo lost. That's why she didn't win my award. I'm building up to it here, all right? The Dagestani Cowboy. You're telling me that Roxanne Modafferi's performance in the Ultimate Fighter finale is on the same level of what Ronda did against Amanda Nunes?
It's not about the
That's one of
performance. That's what I'm saying.
The worst comebacks
Not about
in
the
the history of
performance.
sport.
Not about the
How is
performance.
that possible? I still can't wrap my head around it. I still have a hard time like okay.
George St. Pierre is my pick.
Okay, but when they say when you're watching a great sports game and a team is down 20 and like that's one of the greatest comebacks I've ever seen. They don't
Sure.
like that's what a comeback is. Like you succeed.
Yeah, and as I discussed last year,
Yeah.
the hurdles that Ronda Rousey got over to come back to that cage, you're making the case for it. You're talking about how she had to be dragged into the cage and wasn't mentally prepared and blah, 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 and then still stepped into the cage. In fact, you are making the greatest argument for it by saying that she shouldn't have been in there.
Now you've lost your mind.
No? Same thing, George St. Pierre.
If you are
Same
carded
reasons.
out, if you don't speak to if you don't come to terms with your loss, you can't be in the
No,
running.
see, this
for a
is where
comeback.
I'm completely separated from this whole she didn't talk to media stuff. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
No, but I'm saying I'm talking about the buildup. Like the whole comeback was botched. The whole thing was a fraud. The whole like it was.
We're gonna talk about
It
this
was
for 5
almost. It was
years.
almost so bad that it like called into question everything she did in the past. Which I think, by the way, she's one of the greatest female fighters of all
Stop.
time. But it has changed the perspective in which we view Ronda Rousey. It really Ronda doesn't deserve this. She does not deserve this music. I'm sorry. Look, I was talking to someone last week, and they were like, Ronda Rousey stood for something, and then she showed up, and she couldn't even face the proverbial music. She couldn't even face the music, and then she gets carted out, and then no, she is not. Cut the music. She is not the comeback of the year. She will never be the comeback of the year. Well, actually, no, I take that back. If she comes back and does it the right way and is successful in doing so, then, or if she fights at a 5-round fight, then you could be the comeback.
Oh,
of
so
the
you
year.
have to fight in a 5-round
No,
fight.
you have to actually be good in your comeback. Like you have to be somewhat successful. Forget all that. Anyway,
George
moving
St.
on.
Pierre was successful.
He
my
was.
pick.
Okay, so I'm talking about the Dagestani Cowboy. Khabib deserves to be mentioned. Great comeback for him. By the way, interestingly enough, he was on my short list last year. I hope this doesn't become a trend where he like goes away for the year and then he fights at the end of the year. Rafael dos Anjos,
Yeah, made my list for sure.
a great year, came back after a horrible year. And how about Jesse Taylor? I know it didn't end well for him because of what happened, but look, remember that moment? Remember that moment? He comes back after
Fair.
everything, the comeback season and everything. But in the end,
I'm willing to forget about the result in this case.
no, but he won.
Yeah, I'm willing to forget about all that.
No, he won.
Yeah, it's good. Good comeback.
In the end, it goes to George St. Pierre because I think we saw with Carlos Condit this past weekend, and we've seen time and again, you walk away from the sport, it's very hard to regain what you had before walking away. And George St. Pierre came back after a 4+ year layoff and went into a title fight, went into a higher weight class. And let's not play the revisionist history game. He went in there and he beat and submitted Michael Bisping, just the second man to ever submit Michael Bisping. And oh, by the way, just the second man to hold 2 different belts in 2 different, no, excuse me, fourth man to do it. For Couture, Penn, Connor and him. Connor is the only man to do it at the same time. But what he did was historic, and it capped off, obviously, a great night. George St. Pierre, my comeback of the year. It goes to him. It goes to the GOAT. It goes to the greatest of all time. It goes to the pride of Saint-Isidore, the pride of Montreal, the pride of Quebec, the pride of Canada. It goes to the mensch, George St. Pierre, and he's standing by at the world-famous TriStar Gym in Montreal to accept the Comeback of the Year award. Take it away, George.
Hi everyone, 1st of January 2018, Happy New Year, and I want to say thank you for this award, and it would not have been possible without the help of all of you guys. See, still training, 1st of January, they're in the gym, so even the coach, Firas Zahabi, is there. Thank you again. Yes.
There he is, George St. Pierre accepting the award. What a great moment for him. In November, coming back at MSG. Of course, he's no longer the champion. I have to say this about George. First of all, the guy's at the gym. He's giving props to his team. I see Iman Zahabi there. I see Faraz Zahabi. I asked George to send, I hold him, maybe he's on a pedestal for me. This is one of the greatest, if not the greatest ever. I ask him, hey, congrats, you won this award. It's a big deal for us, whatever. Can you send us a video? The guy responds within 10 minutes and sends me, and he's like, hey, is this good? Does this work for you? He is just such a mensch. He is just such a mensch. What a pleasure. What a great moment. Bold prediction. This isn't one of our questions, but just asking, do you think we ever see him fight again?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think we see him fight in 2018?
Yeah, I do.
Really? Interesting. I asked him how he's feeling, by the way, and he said a lot better.
Yeah, I think there's a dollar figure that you could give George that he'd come back.
Is it Connor or bust? Or do you see him fighting a welterweight or someone else?
I think he could fight somebody else. In fact, I would predict that he does come back and not Connor.
They certainly need him. I mean, look at the numbers, right?
You almost don't want to do your 2 biggest chips at the same time. You take them separately.
It's a different era we're playing with here.
Because you know that they're quantifiable, and you can go George on a different pay-per-view and Connor on another. I mean, I don't know, but I think he does come back, and I don't think it's against Connor.
All right. Well, he looks to be in great shape there. He's in the gym training. It was a great moment. And by the way, did you see Dana White's comments recently?
Yes.
He's getting increasingly salty about how it all went down. He went back to Canada.
It wasn't great.
Come on. It was great. For that night?
No. Oh, so now all of a sudden that's
been the problem for WME. It was great that night because they live in the moment.
It was great that night, but now what is the question?
Robert Whittaker versus Luke Rockhold. In a sense, it sort of it unclogged things, and now we get to the active guys.
Sheesh.
And let him not get. He got to make history. They let him have his historic moment. He gets to fight. Blah blah blah. He gets to fight at MSG. The return to MSG had to be special, right? And it was special.
I've got no problem with the fight. I've got no problem with George fighting for a title. But let's not pretend that this was,
no problem. As I said the Monday after, he gamed the system and they let him game it.
Yeah.
So don't act after the fact that you didn't like it or that you're unhappy. No. And the only reason you're unhappy about it is because now you can't make money off him now because he got one up on you.
He did it right. As I said, made history, made money, and then poof, he's gone. Can't do it better than that.
And by the way, this time last year, I mean, it did not look good for him returning. Remember this time last year? He's a part of the union. They tried to make a deal. I mean, the fact that he actually finally came back and he had the eye injury, it was definitely a weird road to get there. It was somewhat botched at times, but it was great to see him back. It was a cool moment. All right, so that is comeback of the year. Let's talk quickly about upset because we spoke about it earlier. You agreed with me. It's Rose Namajunas over Ioane Jędrzejczyk, correct?
Before we do that, real quick,
yeah,
some fights that were worthy of mention for comeback of the year, real quick. Yuri Alcantara versus Luke Saunders, mentioned earlier. Darren Elkins versus Mirsad Bektik, mentioned earlier. Uriah Hall, which is becoming kind of his calling card, versus Krzysztof Jotko. completely dominated, rocked, blah, blah, blah. Round 2, he comes back and ends the fight, very similar to what he did against Mousasi. And Damir Hadzovic versus Marcin Held, that well-timed knee after Held had dominated him for 2 rounds. Okay.
Upset of the year.
Upset of the year.
Yeah. You agreed with me, right?
I agree with you. Rose Namajunas versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Some of the others that I wanted to quickly highlight, Nico Montano just kind of winning tough was somewhat of an upset. Freeman over Pico back in June at MSG. Josh Emmett over Ricardo Lamas. Those were a couple that came to mind. Any others that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah. Brent Primus versus Michael Chandler.
Okay, so how did you feel about that one? Because it was somewhat weird and inconclusive.
Still, I mean, you have to at least acknowledge it.
Okay.
He was a plus 600 underdog. There's definitely something there. A fight we mentioned multiple times, Darren Elkins versus Mirsad Bektik. He was plus 550 in that fight. Cajun Johnson versus Adriano Martins. He was plus 450.
Good one.
John Moraga versus Magomed Bibulatov.
Yep.
Another huge upset, but none more than Namajunas versus Jędrzejczyk. Almost the biggest statistically in terms of betting odds, but clearly the biggest
What was
in terms
the
of
odds
impact.
going for that one?
She ended at about plus 550.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah, huge. I mean, Joanna looked unbeatable at that point. Huge.
Okay, so that's upset of the year. We talked to Joanna earlier. Of course, we gave her that award. And I think most people, excuse me, did I say Joanna? I meant Rose, obviously. I think most people would give it to Rose after what happened. So let's move along now and talk about rivalry of the year. And I actually went back and forth. To me, this came down to really 2, but I went back and forth on this one. I thought it was, so there's different takes. Let me get to there. Some others that I was considering, or I didn't really consider, but they're on my honorable mention list. Darren Till and Mike Perry. Somewhat inconclusive, but it was a lot of fun, especially that moment in Poland. Them going back and forth. Awesome. Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley. That is a rivalry that is still brewing, but dominated the headlines for many weeks, especially given all the things that Colby did and said. So I think that one should be mentioned. Now we get to the serious contenders. Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw. Remember, they were on The Ultimate Fighter. The fight got delayed, but that's one of the more intense rivalries. And it's still, I mean, even like in the moments afterwards, that photo of them two face to face after TJ beat Cody, and we'll talk about photo of the year as well later on. But that to me was one of the most intense rivalries of the year. And then it came down to 2, and I kept going back and forth. I'll give you my first runner-up. And because I'm looking at the entire year here, that came into play. And so if we were talking about the first half of the year, I may have given it to Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. But as I looked at the entire year, I couldn't give it to Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. Now, obviously, when you talk about a fight making money and dominating the headlines, nothing came close to Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. And yes, I know it was a boxing match, but look, if you don't consider that an MMA fight or at least an MMA story, you're fooling yourself. That was an MMA story. In fact, I would say that the MMA community and the MMA media covered it way better than the boxing community did. The boxing media did. And so, I mean, that is... It built up. Remember in January, I did that interview with him, and then it kept going. Like, we were talking about it every week, and we talked about it after, and we'll be talking about it. I mean, Conor's still talking about it. He's still tweeting about it. He tweeted about it yesterday. And so that was a rivalry. But I think that over time, as I've said on the show, I don't know if it ages well. And I think that as the weeks and months progress post the fight in August 26th to be exact, I feel like some people felt like, was this a rivalry or was this just 2 guys wanting to make a lot of money? I think for Conor, he wanted to prove that he was better. I think Floyd maybe thought that it was never really, a hotly contested matchup. And he was just going in there to make the most amount of money against the easiest opponent in his mind. And I think that scene after the fight at the press conference where they were both kind of standing there and holding out was like, have we been duped here? And oh, by the way, a couple of days later, Floyd Mayweather reveals in his new Beverly Hills mansion that there's, paintings of him and Conor, like gigantic ones on the wall. So I think that over time, people are like, was this a rivalry or was this just 2 guys, trying to make some money and, putting on a spectacle, which it was. and I certainly think it should be considered, but it doesn't win Rivalry of the Year because I think over time it didn't age so well. One thing I'll tell you, though, Daniel Cormier is not having a life-size painting of John Jones in his house anytime soon, and John Jones certainly isn't doing the same. And they're not standing at a presser holding hands and taking a bow. They're not hugging. They're not toasting each other. Daniel Cormier versus John Jones is my 2017 Rivalry of the Year because these guys hated each other going into 214. They continue to hate each other, and it's still now amazingly unfinished because John Jones wins the fight, of course, but then popped by USADA. And now all of a sudden, Daniel Cormier is the champion. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Cormier was doing so great in the fight. The buildup was phenomenal. Cries on national television, is on the show. He's depressed. And then all of a sudden he gets the belt back. I mean, it's just, you couldn't write this script. These guys will never see eye to eye. They'll never be friends. They'll never, take a bow. They'll never have paintings of each other. They'll never, go to each other's Christmas parties or send each other Christmas cards. They were calling each other crackheads before the fight. I mean, it was just intense stuff. They always dominate. We've seen them now square off 20 times. And I could see them square off 20 more times. There's nothing more intense, nothing better, maybe in the history of MMA than John Jones and Daniel Cormier. Like, they are not in this to make money. These two are in it to prove that they are better than each other. And you get the feeling, and Daniel has said it, he would welcome a fight against John tomorrow if that's the opportunity that presents itself. Like, he has no problems, considering the past, of fighting him again. He wants to beat this man. He hates him. He despises him, and he wants to win one against him. And so that's my pick for 2017 Rivalry of the Year. Riveting stuff. Maybe we'll see it again. Maybe we won't, but I think it dominated, and it was the most authentic rivalry that we saw this past year.
My pick, John Jones versus Daniel Cormier.
There we go.
In agreement. Also worth noting in this is that these may be the best two fighters who have squared off in terms of where they stand in all-time rankings. This may be the matchup between two of the best that have ever done it, which adds to the intensity of the rivalry, including all the inside and outside the cage stuff. Now, it's hard on the third fight to believe that Daniel Cormier will win now that John Jones has beaten him twice, which I do think takes away from a bit of the future rivalry. But in terms of to this point, there's nothing more compelling than John Jones versus Daniel Cormier. My direct runner-up, my second place was TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. We finally saw the former teammates do battle. I have to admit, being a little bit relieved to at least be over the hump of TJ Dillashaw versus Team Alpha Male, and that being a perpetual storyline. Now, obviously, I'm sure Cody and TJ will cross paths again, and this will come back up, but it will not be as intense. And it feels like that kind of rivalry has been going on for years. I'm happy that that's finally come to a head in this year. Chael Sonnen versus Vanderlei Silva, we finally got it. We finally saw that rivalry pay off. Now, it wasn't exactly a barn burner,
not bad.
The fight itself, but we at least saw the result of that year, of that multi-year rivalry. Colby Covington versus Brazil. He definitely knows how to make Brazilians mad. And
so you're not going Colby versus Tyron. You're going Colby.
No, Colby versus Tyron is nothing. There's not even a rivalry.
Come on.
Colby versus Brazil.
Tyron doesn't even want to mention his name.
That's okay. So how is that a rivalry?
Because it's intense. Because he hates him that much.
No, he's not even a fly on Tyron Woodley's.
Well, he should be.
Colby versus Brazil. Even though it didn't give us the payoff, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. The match that never was. I still love it. I still want to see it. But there is genuine dislike between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was it. But John Jones versus Daniel Cormier, not even close. Mayweather McGregor not making my list.
Wow.
Because I didn't buy it. I never did buy it that they were rivals. I was not one of the people who thought that this was outlandish and not worth our time and not worth covering. I don't think Floyd Mayweather ever gave an SHIT about Conor McGregor as an opponent. I don't think he cared about him as a viable fighter. He cared about him as a money-making machine, and that's what they did. Didn't consider it a rivalry, but clearly, a huge thing.
Last year, who'd you have?
Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor.
Yeah, me too.
Couldn't have anybody else.
Yeah, me too.
They fought twice in the same year, and it was huge.
Wow. Not even a nod to Conor and Floyd, huh?
It was not a real rivalry. You look, you said it yourself. At the end, it was clear where that laid out. That was not a real rivalry.
First
There's
half
no
of the
key.
year, it still dominated everything.
Hey, it's going to come up later. It's going to come up later, but it was not a real rivalry.
All right. Well, we agree. DC Jones, rivalry of the year. Why don't you go first for coach of the year?
Absolutely. So maybe I was a year early, or maybe this is just becoming tradition, and maybe this is going to be a multi-year thing. My pick once again, same as last year, is Mike Brown from American Top Team.
Wow. Back-to-back winner.
Huge year last year, huge year this year. Now, obviously, it'll be notable, and people will most readily remember Joanna dropping her title after training at ATT. But there was still so much success. Nunes retained, looked good. Poirier had a huge year. Masvidal kept on trucking, got that fight with Maia. Now, obviously, he was on the losing end. Covington continuing to win. Ponzinibbio making himself a household name, or at least a bigger name. Horiguchi, even though he's not in the UFC anymore, keeping it going over in Ryzen. There were a lot of contenders, but it was hard for me to pick against Mike Brown. I think he gets it again this year. So Mike Brown from American Top Team is my coach of the year.
By the way, Horiguchi should get a nod in most improved, maybe even breakthrough, but also, I mean, you could put him in that fighter of the year category as well. He had a great year. So I don't hate the pick. I mean, he's great. He's, you see Mike Brown at every single event almost.
Yeah.
Traveling the world. He's the ultimate coach, cornerman. He's up there. This was a hard one. I find that the coach of the year, we actually over time have gotten rid of the gym of the year award because I don't know if it's fair or it's just not where the sport is headed. But this one's always tough because no one has a perfect year, right? Like, as you mentioned, Joanna lost and, she's a part of ATT, but it's impossible, very rare that a coach has like a perfect year. It's just impossible in the sport. So some names that I was considering, names who ended up on my short list, Mike Brown, as you mentioned, Faraz Zahabi. I thought he had a good year with, George and Roy McDonald and others. Trevor Whitman, who Justin Gaethje noted. I mean, having Justin Gaethje and, of course, Rose Namajunas. Unfortunately, he didn't win, in my opinion, but definitely on that short list. Matt Hume, I think, deserves the nod with what he did with Demetrius Johnson. And you see the way DJ talks about him. And even when he's talking about that submission, I think it's very much worth noting that he's one of the best coaches, not just this past year, but in MMA, period. Also, the captain, Eric Albarracin, has done some great work with the likes of Henry Cejudo and Paulo Costa and the Pitbull brothers. Machida made a comeback, didn't go his way, but he's developing into one of the best coaches in MMA. But in the end, I was looking, I was scratching my head. It just felt like every week, as far as like big events were concerned, this team was in the mix, or developing fighters, names like Frankie Edgar, names like Edson Barbosa, names like Zabit Magomed Sharipov, names like Marlon Moraes, names like Eddie Alvarez, the Mark Henry, Ricardo Almeida partnership as coaches, to me, is one of the best in MMA. And I thought that as coaches, they had the best year. And so I went a bit off script, if you will, and I gave it to both of them because I didn't think it was fair. And I actually think in general, we like in MMA, there's usually 3 to 4 cornermen. It's never really one person. I thought that it was apropos and only fair to give it to both of them. So I'm giving it to Ricardo Almeida and Mark Henry. They've had a phenomenal year. Yes, Edson Barbosa just lost it to Khabib Nurmagomedov, but as I said just moments ago, it's impossible to have that perfect year. And you forget maybe that Frankie was kind of like set up to fail against Yair Rodriguez not that long ago in May, right? And I know he didn't get a chance to fight Max Holloway, but I thought that Mark Henry and Ricardo Almeida had phenomenal years, and they're starting to really develop something special over there in Jersey. And I mean, just look at Zabit and some of the other names that they have coming out as well. So that's my pick for coaches of the year, Mark Henry, Ricardo Almeida, and they were kind enough to send in some acceptance speeches. So let's hear from the two men who call New Jersey home. My picks for 2017 Coaches of the Year.
Hey, what's up, Ariel? Thank you so much. This award means a whole lot. Not so much for me, but for the guys, I don't think it's really about me. I think for sure Coach Mark, I think he's the best coach in the world. And, he was my coach, and I think he deserves, most of the credit, and the rest of the credit goes to the guys. I'm just someone in there who's been in the octagon, who has a good relationship with the fighters, and they just keep their eye on the prize. But truly, this belongs to them. They get in there. It's all about Frankie, Marlon, Eddie, Edson, Corey. We have the new contingent of the Dagestani guys, and they're awesome. We have a tight family. We have a small team. So for us to be able to achieve this together is incredible. But again, all the credit goes to the fighters. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank MMA Hour for Coach of the Year for Ricardo and I. MMA Hour is the Academy Awards for all of MMA. There's no one I'd rather be in the foxhole more with than my brother Ricardo. I especially want to thank Frankie Egger, the general, the glue, and leader to our team, and also Nick Catone and all the other amazing coaches that we have. I believe that coaches get way too much credit, and you're only as good as the car that you drive in. And our small team is just blessed to have so many Ferraris in that garage that let us take that amazing ride with them. We have just amazing warriors with that never quit, never give up attitude. Thanks again, Ariel and MMA Hour, for this amazing award. God bless everyone, and have an amazing 2018. I'll see you in the octagon.
Okay, a couple of things there. Two of the nicest human beings on the planet, Mark Henry and Ricardo Almeida, very much deserved. Mark Henry, lifelong Buffalo Bills fan, so what a great couple of days for him. Congratulations to our Bills. We're going to do it, baby. We're going to win the Super Bowl in February in Minnesota. How about it? Ricardo Almeida, if you go back and watch it, he's wearing a lav mic. You talk about a pro, his acceptance speech, he's wearing a lav mic in the acceptance speech, filming it on his phone. I mean, that is a pro right there. Amazing stuff. And there it is. You see, he's wearing a lav. He laved himself. He mic'd himself up. You kidding me? That's a pro. I'm very happy that Mark Henry mentioned Nick Catone because he's a very big part. Again, you hate to give it to one guy, and so I made it two. I didn't want to go three, but it's really the whole team there. I really think that they did a phenomenal job in 2017, and they're in place now. With what Frankie's doing and others, Marlon to have a big year as well this year. But like, you watch them and the way they corner and the way they talk about the fighters, and they had some fighters that had to make some comebacks this year, like Eddie Alvarez, and the way they've developed guys like Zabit. I just thought that they had a great year. And so I also love the way it always goes back to Frankie. Like they truly have nominated him the captain of the team, and they give him all the respect every chance that they can. And it's very cool to see them continue to do that. So they don't like, they're not one of those teams like ATT or Jackson Wink or AKA, or they don't really have a team name, and maybe that hurts them. And I think I've said this on the show before. It hurts them in terms of branding and recognition. But the Ricardo Almeida fight team, that's sort of a descendant of the Renzo Gracie team, just phenomenal stuff in 2017, and really two of the nicest human beings in the sport. So congratulations to them. Some very worthy, candidates, as you said, but my pick.
Yeah, hard to disagree with anything you said about them there. So many. I hate this category because there's so many coaches, and as you said, it's also not just one coach. There's no high level fighter in this game that is coached by one person and one person alone. And I hate picking. So I think they're all fantastic. The ones that we mentioned are great.
I appreciate manager to the Stars, Ali Abdelaziz, tweeting out about our pick. He, of course, has a lot of fighters in that stable.
Yeah.
Not Edson. He had Khabib going up against Edson. Quietly, Ali was campaigning for us to include a manager of the year category this year. He was very confident that he would sweep that one. But
you want to do it right now on the fly, off the cuff?
Who would I give it to?
I was kidding. I hope we're not doing that.
I'm giving it to, who am I giving it to? Pat Barry, who manages Rose Namajunas.
You could do worse. That's a good pick.
No, but yes, Ali was campaigning for that. I appreciate him tweeting out about the show. Okay, so that's our coach.
Who'd you have last year?
For coach, yes. I had John Kavanaugh. which a lot of people gave me crap for. But I said, remember I said the way they handled the loss at 196 and the way they came back and not only avenged the loss, but then made history against Eddie Alvarez, and plus the development of guys like James Gallagher. I thought that Kavanaugh deserved it.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to justify.
No, but I was
yourself on
just
that. It's a good.
A lot of time has passed since last year, so just to remind people. Okay, why don't you go with event of the year?
Easy one for me. UFC 217.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, I feel like there was a storyline heading into every single fight. Even like the strange stuff that happened with Blades and Olynyk and Harris and Godbeer, even that was entertaining. Like even those moments were something interesting. OSP pulling the head kick out of nowhere on Anderson, James Vick upsetting Joe Duffy, Paulo Costa announcing his arrival against a former champion in Johnny Hendricks, Thompson versus Masvidal, a matchup that everybody was looking forward to, capped off by Rose with an all-time upset, TJ getting his title back, and GSP coming back to make history with the middleweight belt. You cannot pick against UFC 217. It was the event of the year, bar none. Not only was it storylines for days and stakes for days, it delivered on every single fight. You can't pick against UFC 217.
And last year, I'm guessing you picked 205, right?
I did. New York.
Yeah.
Double card, back to back.
So also sort of like Mike Brown, back-to-back winners. I agree. My event of the year for 2017 was UFC 217. I thought this was a really easy pick. In fact, can I go as far as to say there weren't a lot of other great choices? Like
I had two that I thought were pretty good.
It wasn't a great year as far as like total. Like there were events that had moments. Let's talk about some of them. UFC 214 was great, right? I mean, it had it had the Jones Cormier fight. It had Cyborg Evinger. It had the Woodley fight, Cerrone Lawler. All right, it was fine. 3 title fights. I also included UFC 218, the Detroit card, right?
That was one of mine.
That was certainly a good one. 216 was a good card, and I kind of gave it the nod also because it was after the Las Vegas shooting, and I felt that the UFC just kind of handled it the right way, and they went on with the show, but still paid homage to Las Vegas and everyone who was suffering. So I wanted to mention that as well. And also the Bellator event at MSG. I thought, what is it about MSG? Always great events there thus far in MMA. They've been waiting a long time, but I thought that was a fairly entertaining event. But in the end, I went with 217. Everything you mentioned, couldn't agree more. I mean, it was, again, one of the easier picks because, quite frankly, I thought that there weren't a lot of great events this year from top to bottom.
I also had 218. That was my runner-up. I mean, 2 fight of the year contenders in Alvarez, Gaethje, and Medeiros and Oliveira, plus Max Holloway, my fighter of the year, showing up and dominating. I thought 218 was great. 209, Tamor Venata, Elkins Bektik, Alcantara Sanders.
209 gets thrown out because of what happened with the main event. It
was not a great main event. I
mean, the whole thing felt like it was under a black cloud. We were all depressed. No way.
Yeah.
No way.
The rest of it was so good, though. It was so good. It really lost momentum. It was building so nicely. Overeem and Hunt, Calvillo getting the submission, Dan Kelly with the upset over Rashad Evans, and then it just kind of crashed after that. But top to bottom, it was good. I can't hold that against it.
Horrible. It was so depressing. Maybe because I was there.
Maybe that's.
I remember that feeling.
Look, it wasn't. No, on TV, it wasn't great either.
Heartbreak of the year.
But the rest of the card was really, really good.
Yeah. Any others?
Those were it was after 217, I stopped. Like you don't have to look much further.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, it was an easy one. So MSG is now 3 for 3 as far as events, in my opinion. Great events. And you can make the case that 217 was better than 205, as we said after the event.
I think it was, yeah.
And you can make the case that like 90-minute stretch from the Rose win to the TJ win to the GSP win, like the best 90 minutes in UFC history. 3 champions losing, upsets galore, the comeback of GSP, the rivalry between TJ and Cody. For that one night, forget about anything. That one night, they got it right. And everyone went home happy. Unless you were rooting for those other people, but if you were just kind of there to enjoy MMA, I think it's a night that we'll be talking about for a very long time. So UFC 217, we agree on that one.
Yep.
Event of the year for UFC's, for the year that was 2017. Okay, let's move along now and let's talk about crowd of the year. I'll go first here. This one I thought was really tough, and the way I view this one, and it may be different than the way you view it because I get to go to events.
Yeah,
I like to really look at the events that I went to because those are the ones that I experienced.
Yep.
And I know that may not be fair. There may be a great event in X, country or city that was phenomenal. I just didn't experience it. And so it's different. I'll give a nod to one. That I wasn't at, and that was the Cage Warriors event in Liverpool in April with Paddy Pimblett coming out. That was a phenomenal crowd, and that it came out. Like through the screen. You remember his walkout was incredible. He came across a superstar. Unfortunately, he didn't win, but that was in my running for crowd of the year. Also, I wanted to give the nod to Long Island because that event to me, it was a UFC event. And it wasn't the greatest card of all time, but it actually felt like a local card in a weird way because it was weird. Have you ever been to the Coliseum?
I have, yeah.
It's in the middle of this parking lot and there's nothing really around it. And there were a lot of local fighters. It was almost like the MSG card that we were hoping for, like New York versus the world. There were a lot of local fighters on the card and a lot of people were wearing t-shirts and there were signs outside in the field. And it just felt like people were like, wow, okay, this is the New York card that I've been waiting for. And I thought that was it was a very, it felt like a Ring of Combat crowd.
Are you saying that was the New York card that New Yorkers could actually afford and get into?
That too.
Because MSG with the ticket prices probably kept out some of the New
I remember
Yorkers
seeing Frankie Perez t-shirts and Chris Wade t-shirts and obviously Weidman and Vellante.
Yep.
It just felt like, okay, New York was coming together. This was the card that they were waiting for.
Yep.
And maybe it's the card that they could afford. So I really like that crowd. It was like an innocent crowd. I don't know. It was a throwback kind of crowd.
It was a New York crowd. Yeah. That's all you got to say. It was real.
Yeah, it was real. We don't get to see a lot of those.
Yeah.
And again, as I've talked about many times, they booked it the right way. It was, I think a lot of times we want to see that, especially here in the States, because the UFC just kind of throws anything. We want to see crowds and cards that have connections to each other, right?
Absolutely.
As I've talked about with Stipe and others. So I really like that. But in the end, I went with Edmonton, UFC 215, because that was a crowd that was so excited that the UFC was there for the first time. And I remember the ceremonial weigh-ins have become a complete wash for me. I mean, they're almost a waste of time. Unless there's a real rivalry, there's really no reason to go to them. And if you're the kind of person that wants to go to that, back in the day, to the weigh-ins, which used to hold a lot of intrigue, think about this past week. There's a lot of intrigue about Khabib making weight and all this stuff. But that intrigue happens in the morning, and that's why I do those the streams and all that, the calls, because that's where the intrigue happens. We know what happens later on in the day, so no one shows up to them anymore. The crowds the arenas are desolate. That crowd, those people actually showed up. They showed up. It was an old time show where the ceremonial weigh-ins weren't a ceremonial weigh-in. It was just a real weigh-in in the afternoon.
I'll say this: the one thing I do look forward to is the stare down. Obviously, that's the one thing you get that you don't get in the morning. Fair. That I do look forward to. But you're right. I mean, the intrigue is gone.
Yeah,
there's no suspense there.
They showed up. They were excited. Tons of them showed up to the workouts on Thursday. And if you recall, the main event fell through.
Yep.
Right. It was supposed to be DJ versus Borg. And they were still happy to be there, and they were still and I know in hindsight, it ended in a little bit of a weird way because they booed the main event, but it wasn't the greatest main event of all time. I thought they were hot throughout. I thought they showed up early, and also, and maybe this isn't fair, when thinking about this, I got to give a nod to that arena because it's still the greatest arena that I've ever been to. I mean, I was there in September, but it was just phenomenal.
Didn't you also love the Little Caesars?
I said it's number 2. It's great. They're making some great new arenas in North America, but the Rogers Place in Edmonton is still number 1. It's just phenomenal. And the whole experience of covering the event there was just amazing. So the architecture and the people were so nice and they were so excited. They were coming up and thanking me for being there. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I didn't decide this. So
now they're last on my list.
2017 Crowd of the Year, Edmonton. By the way, I look back last year, 2016 Crowd of the Year, Toronto. And
maybe a little bit biased.
Yes, but I don't think it's fair to say that because.
Yes, go ahead. Tell me why.
I'll tell you why. You why.
Yeah.
if you recall,
what's going on here? What are we doing? Are we doing research?
No. Miles, if you could just help me out for a second. There we go. No, not the right music. Get rid of that music, Miles.
Oh, he has it in his.
Miles.
Here we go.
We talked about this, Miles. Yes.
I don't think it's fair to say that. Miles, if you could just help me out for a second.
My. There, play it again. Yeah, my stream's muted. Miles, if you could just help me out for Miles. Is my stream? Oh wait, no.
I'm loving this.
Miles, help me, please. There it is. Now this is not owned by anyone, so I could play this out, right?
I'm sure this is public domain, but
so let me tell you about UFC 215 in Edmonton. The crowd, they were so into it. There weren't a lot of Canadian fighters on the card, by the way, and they just were so happy to be there. They were thanking me, for God's sakes. And if you recall, I believe Dana White didn't even show up. And why were they thanking me? They were thanking me because I have become the unofficial promoter of the UFC. I have become the face of the company. I have become the man who has gotten people excited about this sport.
Are you making a run at Prime Minister?
Yes, I am making a run at Prime Minister. For those interested, I will be announcing my retirement from MMA. No, it was a great crowd and it was a great arena. But let me tell you about 206 last year. If you remember, that card was decimated, right?
It was, yeah.
And the crowd was phenomenal.
Now,
and Holloway and Pettis, remember all that?
The crowd had no choice to be phenomenal. That card from top to bottom was
but on paper, wasn't that great?
No, it was
shallow.
Crap.
Yeah.
Crap. But it ended up being just like you could not get excited. You could not get excited for that one. I think, didn't they even choose that as the replay for the New Year's?
Yes.
At the end.
Yes. No, Christmas Eve.
Christmas. Yeah. Huge card it ended up being. But yeah, shout out to the Canadians and their number one advocate still, Ariel Helwani.
They continue to give us crap. They continue to give us lemons. They continue to give us chicken, and we turn it all into positives, right? We turn it into lemonade. We turn it into chicken salad. We turn the negatives into positives. So if you want a great crowd, you go to Canada. That's it. Let me fix this.
You're perpetuating now that they can bring crap to Canada, and Canada's going to be thankful.
Well, guess what? No difference than what they've been doing the last few years,
Don't encourage it.
Guess what? Give us a damn good card. You'll see what happened. 55,000, UFC 129. How about that?
Look, George, I said George is coming back in 2018. Do it.
What's your crowd of the year?
My crowd of the year, not
guess.
having that personal experience.
Let me guess, Kansas City Invicta 24.
No, you know what?
Capacity crowd.
Hilarious, but no, it's not.
Okay, what do you got?
UFC Fight Night 113 Glasgow.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Not only did it come across on TV how great that crowd was and how enthused they were to be there, but we've had personal accounts, especially one given on the show by Paul Felder, saying that he's never heard a crowd louder than that, and he's fought quite a few places. UFC Fight Night 113, Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay.
Runner-up, UFC 119, Sao Paulo, Brazil, giving Colby Covington the business. That was a great moment.
And by the way, I was on the Glasgow bandwagon first. Remember their first event in 2015, I gave them crowd of the year. Yeah, they actually wrote about it in the newspaper.
Well, maybe they'll write about it again, Glasgow.
Well, no, I want the Edmonton Sun to write that I gave them the crowd of the year. It's a big deal for them.
We'll see.
I mean, that's the city of champions, by the way. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
The biggest pop of the whole card was when they showed the hockey team.
Yeah, what's his name was there? Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Incredible.
UFC 203, Cleveland, Ohio was mine last year.
Oh, yes.
I think there was... we were in agreement there, no?
No, I gave it to 206.
Oh, that's right.
Toronto.
It's the worst choice ever, obviously.
203 was a great one.
Yeah, 203. OHIO. I mean,
yeah, that was amazing.
You messed up.
What was I thinking?
Yeah. Biased Canadian MMA awards picking.
God. All right, so that's our crowd of the year. Always a fun award. Am I biased in saying that these are the best awards, most comprehensive awards in MMA?
No, you're not. I mean, we spend hours and more hours creating them than actually even doing them.
I'll tell you this much. No one has Walkout of the Year, so let's get to Walkout of the Year. You go first.
Happy to. Easiest choice ever.
Wow.
Happened at the buzzer, right under the gun.
Oh, I knew you were going to go with this one.
Of course you did, because it's the best one. So let's roll it out. I don't even need to.
Oh, we got it. Wow.
Oh, we've got it. Thanks to a Twitter user.
Oh, wow. This is not what I thought.
Mark Chikasi. Yes.
Yes. Can you explain this to me?
Mark Chikasi walking out to Man's Not Hot by Big Shaq at UFC 290.
Can you explain this one to me? No, like I got the pick, but I don't know why this is so great.
Best song choice.
Is this the guy who goes?
Yeah.
Why do people love this so much?
Because it's the best song. It's the song of the year.
Is it?
Actually, it's the song of the decade.
Is it really?
Or the song of the millennium. Doesn't really matter. Big Shaq, Man's Not Hot, Mark Jacobson. I believe the first fighter to walk out to this in the UFC.
But why is this song so beloved?
Have you heard it?
I mean,
you could start there.
Is it the video of the guy doing the?
That is the original song, but then there's a music video for it.
But is that the same guy,
Yeah.
or did someone just take that and turn?
No, that's him. That's Big Shaq.
Is he British?
He is British.
I can't say I'm very familiar with this song. Is it an actual good song, or do you think that Jay Casey came out to this song like to be ironic?
No, I think he came out because it's the banger, and also because Big Shaq is a British bloke, and he was paying tribute to the legends of British hip hop.
Oh, what in the song?
No, Big Shaq, the guy.
No, I know, but in the song he pays homage.
No, Jacobson is paying homage by using that music.
Right.
It's like it's like coming out to Biggie or Pac.
So his name is Big Shaq.
Big Shaq, yeah.
Like SHAQ.
Yep.
Interesting.
Big Shaq. I mean, that's it. Like,
I thought you were going to do King Reina.
Honorable mention.
I thought that was the one you were going to do for sure.
Live band.
Yeah.
Teddy Bear and the Chupa. Here's the key to this: the Chupa Chups pop. You know the lollipops that everybody loves.
What?
With the pink label.
Oh yeah,
pink label like this, and then the yellow.
She came out with that.
She comes out with a big one all the time, like a giant size, this big, Chupa Chups pop. She was a runner-up. My other runner-up was Fedor, walking out to, and I had to do some digging to figure out what the name of this song was. It's called "Faith Is Eternal" at Bellator 180 in New York.
Isn't it the same song he always comes out to?
He switched it up a little bit over the years. There's been different versions of it, but Fedor coming out for the first time in years in the United States, is a big deal. But I mean, bar none, easiest choice ever. Mark Jacobson, "Man's Not Hot" by Big Shaq.
Interesting.
He could have done that anywhere. He could have done that in his backyard. If they recorded it, I would have picked it.
Our social media guru, Danny Segura, tells me, quote, "It's hella hype," end quote.
It's hella hype.
I mean,
isn't
hella something they say in Northern California? The kid's from Florida by way of Columbia.
I want to do something real quick because we used that graphic and it covered up the credit for the Twitter user. So I want to make sure to give him the proper credit. His name is Michael Rutledge. His handle is at RUTLEDGEMJ. So
this
Rutledge,
is the guy who took the video.
Michael Rutledge. This is the guy who took the video. Was baked into the top corner, but we covered it up. So I just want to make sure to give him the proper credit. Thank you for capturing that magical moment, Michael, and thank you to Mark for making that happen.
Certainly didn't help Mark in the fight.
It's hella hype.
Yeah,
it's hella hype.
So just curious, because this happened just 2 days ago. What was your pick?
It was going to be Fedor coming out in the United States for the first time in 6 years, I believe, something like that.
Last year?
Last year, I had the easiest one, and I think you might have botched this too. Uriah Faber walking out to California Love by Tupac in Sacramento in his final fight. That's what I picked. What did you pick?
No, I'm pretty confident I had the right pick last year. It was CM Punk coming out to Cult of Personality. Like, that was an actual news story. Like, people were wondering. Remember, people were wondering, would he come out to the song?
Over Uriah Faber walking out for the last time.
Yeah, well, they botched that. They did
the California Love.
It was like the third fight on the main card. It was like totally underwhelming. Did they even show the walkout? Yeah, they did.
They did. Of course, they did.
No, CM Punk coming out was an actual news story. Would he come out to the song? And then there was a delay. They did a great job with this one. Delay, and then it was. Anyway, now
what is your pick?
Okay, so my pick. You know what? This one, it was an easy pick. It came to me in a second, but then when I tried to do honorable mentions,
couldn't think of any.
Not a lot of great ones. Because what I look at unlike you, I don't go for like the gimmicky thing. I go for like what gets my blood boiling. Like when there's a moment where you say, I'll tell you, can I tell you?
Right, like Faber walking out for the last time in Sacramento. That's low key. That's not anything exciting. That's not that.
That was the. Can I tell you what? Before I give you my best walkout, can I tell you what my worst walkout of the year was?
Yeah, tell me.
Worst walkout of the year was Conor McGregor against Floyd Mayweather. Conor in particular. They completely botched that one. Now, you have to know Conor's song. Conor has the Sinead O'Connor part and then the Biggie part. they botched
timing,
it.
yeah.
He was in the ring, and the Sinead part was still going on. You got to time it where you got to do the black and this and
You
that.
have to chalk that up to the boxing walkouts, though, are typically crap. Except for like Anthony Joshua, they're always crap.
That one was so disappointing. It was like so underwhelming.
It
Like,
wasn't
they didn't
great.
even dim the lights. It wasn't. It didn't feel big. That one was really disappointing. That was my worst walkout. That's not an award, by the way. But I was trying to think. Like I'm trying to think of moments. You know, there's moments like in the past when Conor came out against Nate the second time or other fights. I mean, it's just like, oh, this is the song. Or remember, like I'll give you this: Ronda coming out to that song. Oh, is she back? Is she not? I didn't end up giving it to her because she faltered, but you know, it was still, you know, like other ones that I mentioned here is Stipe. This is last year, like Stipe in Cleveland, Conor at 202, Woodley, John Jones against Ovin St. Preux. Remember, I'm Coming Home. Uriah Faber's on there. Cody Garbrandt. Like these were big time, you know, with Maddox Maple. Remember when he came out with him? These were big time walkouts. This year, I didn't feel like there were that many honorable mentions, but there was a great winner. And there really only is one winner this year because
it was mine. But
in the past, like when I'm at events, typically I sit in the back, and I sit in the back because they bring fighters to do scrums with us, and also because I feel like I get a better vantage point. You know, like I'm able to watch the action and hear the commentary and the post-fight interviews to do my job. Like, of course, as a fan, I want to sit there and take it all in, but I feel like to do my job, I'm better served in the back. In July, when I was at the brand new Nassau Coliseum, the main event was about to start. And I said to myself, I need to be out there for this. I need to feel this. And so I snuck out. I went in the tunnel and I felt it. And let me tell you, the goosebumps that overtook my entire body, the feeling that I had, my heart was pounding. It wasn't like the biggest event of all time. It wasn't the most important event of all time. But in that moment, Miles, hook me up. In that moment, when this hit, just for a second, just give me for a second. When this hit, and it just spoke to the moment. Oh, can you give me a couple seconds of it? Jesus. Oh man, Chris Weidman fighting for his career at this point, at home, finally back home. Chris Weidman fighting for his career with his back against the wall, with everyone counting him out after the debacle at MSG, after the loss to Luke Rockhold, after, you know, injuring his neck, being in New York on Long Island where he watched his hometown Islanders play, to come out to that song. The goosebumps that I felt was just phenomenal. What a great moment it was. Won't back down, and just what it represented and the story behind it. And it was just so amazing. I mean, I started to get emotional watching it. And of course he ends up winning, and we're still waiting, you know, his return. He had the thumb surgery afterwards. And you remember that Monday, remember what happened the Monday after that fight?
I do. Yeah.
Tom Petty passed away.
And we had Chris on also
impromptu,
to speak about it.
What a great moment.
It is a great one.
That song just like, in a weird way, that song has symbolized his career on many different levels. Like going up against Anderson, no one thought that he would, you know, be able to beat Anderson the first time. And then the rematch, it was just a fluke. And, you know, and again, like coming back against Gaslam and everything he'd been through and the losing streak and everything like that. It was phenomenal. Everyone standing up, everyone pulling for him. Again, it's rare these days, and I'd love to see them do this more, where the stars align, where the hometown guy is in the main event and everyone's pulling for him. And usually when this happens, you know, it's a moment like Stipe's the champion. This time, the hometown guy had his back against the wall. So I won't back down. Tom Petty, Chris Weidman, my 2017 Walkout of the Year. Mr. Weidman, kind enough to be joining us from Long Island to accept the award. Here we go.
I just got the great news that I won the award for Best Walkout of the Year. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you to all my fans and supporters out there making my dream come true. The belt is coming back 2018.
There he is, Chris Weidman. Curious to see what kind of a year he has in 2018. Zane Wedding tells us another good one. I wasn't there to really feel it, but Mark Hunt walking out in Auckland for the first time in nearly 20 years was a great moment, and that was a great moment. So there were a couple of them, no doubt about it, and I'm sure we forgot a couple, but that's my Walkout of the Year for 2007.
I feel like this one, more than most others, is very personal, is very subjective.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a lot of, you didn't pick this, but I mean, I know I made the right choice.
Okay, this is a fun category. Let's go to promo of the year. This is a very fun category. You know we like the promotional side of things. And certainly we could have gone with my promo for UFC 217 that helped the UFC get over 1 million buys and just swept through the internet. One of the most viral videos of the year. But in the end, I didn't want to, stay home on this one. I wanted to give props to other people. So it really came down to two things. And actually, when I sent you my awards a couple days ago, I had a pick and then I changed my pick because prior to sending you my awards, I had another pick and then I changed it to that pick and then I finally changed it back to my original pick. And why did I do that? Because I was talking to Sean about this and Casey, and they're like, oh no, you promo of the year, it's got to be Mayweather-McGregor in Toronto. And I said, you know what? You're right. Mayweather-McGregor in Toronto at the open air stadium there. What was it called? Was it the Molson Amphitheater? I think it changed to the Budweiser stage, but it used to be the Molson Amphitheater, and then it became the Budweiser stage. That was promotion 101, because to just set the scene once again, we were in LA for the first stop of the World Tour, and then Conor kind of is like taken by surprise. He doesn't really know what's going on. It's not his best stuff. And then we go to Toronto the next day and it's pouring rain. It's a capacity crowd. I think it was like 16,000 people there. Drake comes out first and Conor comes out guns blazing. There's the moment where they face off. They're going back and forth. He's talking about why you have a book bag. You can't read. It was just phenomenal. And I remember that feeling. I mean, that feeling after Toronto, flying home, I was thinking like, this is not only going to be the biggest fight of all time. This is going to be the greatest sporting event of all time. Unfortunately, Brooklyn happened. London happened. That was the apex of maybe the entire damn thing. But that night in Toronto, like if you ever want to go back, that was like when pro wrestling met MMA in the best way possible. That was the opening segment of a Raw show. It was going back and forth. They were flowing. Dana's a character. Espinoza's a character. The teams are characters. The bodyguards are characters. Drake is showing up, like I said. I mean, it was just phenomenal stuff. It really was. It was riveting. I was sitting next to other media members who don't really cover MMA. Like they're just there, sports guys. They're like, what is this? This is the most insane thing ever. It was so much fun to cover that whole thing. It culminated in Toronto. It was amazing. And I loved everything about it. But again, the way it ages, right? The way it ages.
You just sold it so hard.
I loved
and
it.
now it's not even your pick.
I loved it. But what do I want from the UFC? As a consumer, as a fan, what do I want from the Ultimate Fighting Championship? I want honesty. I want authenticity. I want realness. I want them to tell stories. I want them to promote their fights. I want them to do it the right way. And I said the night I saw this that it was the greatest promo in the UFC's history, their illustrious history. And I stand by it 6 months later. The promo for UFC 214, in my opinion, is the 2017 promo of the year. It was phenomenal. It was real. It was honest. It told the story of John Jones. It told the story of Daniel Cormier. It gave me goosebumps. I felt it. I wanted to run through a brick wall. I wanted to buy that pay-per-view that moment. I wanted to go home and buy it a month in advance, even though you never do that. Even though Leonard Ellerbe kept telling us to do that for May Mac, I wanted to do it because it worked so well, because it did not sweep anything under the rug. Typically they do that, right? But it talked about all of John Jones's warts, and it talked about how Daniel Cormier related to it all, and how their stories came together and why Daniel needed him back. It was just amazing. We have that promo, right? In case you forgot the one, let's play it in its entirety. It's just 3 minutes long, but I think it's worth it because this was the UFC at its best. I don't know exactly who edited it. I wish I knew the producer, and I should have gotten this in advance, but you know who you are. You deserve the credit. I hope the UFC hires you to do all their promos. Whoever put that whole thing together from start to finish, phenomenal stuff. Here it is.
I don't want to look back a few years from now and say, man, I could have been it. I could have had it all. I could have done it.
I'm going for a world title, baby. Let's do it.
One day closer to my dreams coming true. I never want to do anything that's going to harm our sports image.
I know from this day of my life will never be the same.
He might be the greatest talent we've ever seen in the UFC. John Jones is the youngest champion in UFC history. The future Johnny Bones Jones.
This is where the real challenge begins.
And you have things thrown at you. How will I react? This is going to test who I really am.
John can do anything he puts his mind to. He is his own worst enemy.
Will I be the right person?
John Jones pleads guilty to a DWI charge.
He tested positive for cocaine and checked into rehab.
Will I continue to be humble?
I hope he's somewhere crying right now.
Will I always respect people?
Jones is charged in a felony hit-and-run incident.
He's been stripped of the title.
He was recently thrown in jail for a probation violation.
A lot of questions will be answered about me.
I've sworn to protect the citizens from people like you, Mr. Jones.
I think some people love the chaos. The parties, the drugs, the alcohol. He might have needed that in order to be who he was.
Wild, unpredictable stuff.
Some strong demons tugging at him. And until you completely give in to the fact that these demons have you, something in it had a power. You can never overcome them. Could barely tear my eyes away. All you have is your fire.
DC is so in love with the narrative.
And the place you need to reach.
He's obsessed with winning over the hearts of people.
I haven't done all these things. I haven't wrecked my vehicle. I didn't get stripped of my championship.
I'm a good person. And John, you are a bad person.
When you get your together and you're ready to fight, I'm here waiting for you. You know it.
DC feels as if I need some more humiliation.
What's this guy gonna do to mess this up this time? Don't you
I'm sick of being that guy, and I'm ready to get out of my own way.
We may see John become the person that he's always tried to convince us that he is. The only way he becomes that person is he loses to me July 29th.
I need to win this fight. I need to get my life back.
Can I be honest with you? I actually feel like the promo is better than I remembered it. It's just so amazing when it all comes together. So a couple of highlights. His dad talking about him. The part where the cop is, I'm sworn to protect people, the people from people like you, Mr. Jones. The DC part. Just amazing. I'll tell you the one thing I don't like about it is I need to get my life back. That line right there, I felt like they needed to go one beat longer with the music. But that is just an amazing promo. It's going to be it's going to be hard to top that ever, period. I mean, that is just the most amazing promo that I've ever seen, really. Because it's honest, because it's real. It talks about his warts. It talks about him getting arrested and crashing. By the way, there was a quick Helwani White interview cameo there. It was just so great. It really was. Gives me goosebumps. Someone mentions to me that the promo for 2018 has already been won, and that's the 220 promo, and it's a great promo.
It is a very good promo.
But there's a big difference there. The narration kills it. Do you notice there's no narration in this one?
Mm-hmm. It's just them talking.
The narration is cheesy. It's so cheesy. Look at this. This is just amazing. Tell the story. Tell it. And I know it's not always going to be Cormier Jones.
It's not.
It can't always be. But you know what? You know what's more disappointing? When it is Cormier Jones and it doesn't deliver. But this time it delivered beyond my wildest expectations. So kudos.
Yeah.
UFC 214 promo of the year. I could watch it a million times. I really could.
Yeah.
I really could. Amazing.
The poster also delivered on that one, just top to bottom.
Oh, it was just so great.
Yeah.
Your pick?
My pick, as I alluded to earlier, Justin Gaethje. You know those moments where somebody says something that you think is absolutely batshit insane, but you believe them, and you never look at them the same way again? This was the moment that I believed Justin Gaethje when he said that he's only after the most violent lightweight in the world title and nothing else. And it was this moment from the UFC's summer kickoff presser.
Danny Austin.
No, I'm not a gatekeeper of the UFC. Trust me, I'm here to.
Yes, he is.
I'm here to win this title, and I'm not here to welcome guys from the C League in here, you know. But at the same time, yeah, of course, I'm gonna welcome him into the UFC, and it's not gonna be a good night for him, hands down. You know, I got 2 months to get prepared to take somebody's life in this cage. I'm not trying to beat him. I'm not trying to win by decision or a point. I'm literally gonna try to take this man's life. And if you're not,
want to die.
And if you're not ready, you're not ready to die, don't show up.
I am ready to die.
I'm telling you right now, the shit that's running through my mind,
breaking
you're in a
piece
bad
by
night,
piece,
boy.
artistically breaking you.
I eat my shit whole. I don't fucking take piece by piece.
The more you talk, the bigger of an ass you're gonna look on July 7th. That's all I gotta say.
I don't chew on nothing the whole time. I'm gonna fucking eat you up for dinner, boy.
Nope,
Save nothing for leftovers.
You are.
Nothing for
It's gonna be
leftovers.
easy, man. You got the
No, it's
easiest
not gonna
fight
be
on
easy.
this.
It won't
got
be
e-
the
easy.
easiest fight.
2 months are gonna be hard. But
Oh,
July
yeah,
7th
you're
will
good.
be very easy.
You're good. You're good. You got nothing to worry about then. We're good.
That was amazing.
That moment right there, because everything else in that presser seemed a little bit like it was set up for them to kind of do this. We had the whole Michael Chiesa and Kevin Lee with the mom thing. Like all the rest of it felt a little bit artificial. It felt a little bit contrived.
I loved it, but yes, go ahead.
Do you disagree with that though? That it seemed like all this was like people were taking cues from Conor McGregor that this is my moment where I'm going to throw something out there that gets.
But I enjoyed it. I mean, look at this past one; it was good. But I thought that the one that we had on Friday, it seems like when they all put them together, they all try to top each other, and it makes for a fun scene. But yes,
no doubt about it, it was fun. But that moment, when Justin Gaethje's welcomed death, or cheered for it and wanted it and craved it, like I want, ice cream. The guy is insane. And I think that was kind of the start of everybody realizing that Justin Gaethje is here for fight of the year contenders every single time he steps into the cage.
By the way, let's give credit to Michael Johnson too.
Well, Johnson set him up perfectly by saying I'm trying to kill you. And Gaethje ran with it. I don't even, that one, the moment it happened, I realized that we were in a different place right now. Like Justin Gaethje is a different kind of dude. If you hadn't seen him fight in WSOF, that's all you needed to be exposed to for Justin Gaethje. Some other things, obviously the Conor McGregor in Toronto, he had people eating out of the palm of his hands there. That was just masterful stuff. Khabib Nurmagomedov, late entrant, his UFC 219 post-fight interview, where he says he'll fight Conor or Tony within an hour. He just needs an hour rest, these bullshit guys. Colby Covington at 119. It wasn't the most eloquent. It wasn't the best executed, but I feel like he had the stones to do it, and Daniel Cormier definitely helped him in that case. I really like that promo a lot. Last year, my promo was also, I feel like I'm partial to the presser lines. My promo of the year last year was Who the Fook is that guy by Conor McGregor. I like the press conference lines. So that was my promo of the year.
I
Justin
went with,
Gaethje showing that he's a crazy
No, that was great. That was a great one. And a somewhat under the radar one. That one you really pulled out of your hat, but I like it. I like it. I went with I'm Not Surprised last year because it led to so much, and it was, on a mural, and it was just so big. But the 214 one, and also it's like you watch that, and I'm a little bit sad because of how it ended. But maybe the way it ended leads to more. We'll see. But that was just great stuff. It really was.
I mean, you can't go wrong with that promo.
So great.
It was perfect.
So great.
I know you're nitpick. Oh, I wish you stayed on the musical beat one more. Come on, that thing was a masterpiece.
I'm a production guy. What can I say? Okay, let's go to photo of the year. First time in the history of this most prestigious award show, we have photo of the year. And I think we talked about this last year, right? I think we talked about wanting to include it. I'm happy we did.
Yep.
Next year, remind me about Face Off because I think that's important. But anyway, photo of the year. A lot of great ones.
Yep.
But in the end, to me, I talked about it many times leading up, and I talked it afterwards as well. And I just talked about it moments ago. Toronto, Mayweather McGregor, a scene unlike any other. The fans were great. Oh, by the way, I do believe that was in the Great White North. Once again, the fans over there doing their part. But the moment
in those votes
post LA, Conor showing up, knowing what he needed to do, and the moment where they walked up to each other, and that kind of felt a little bit rehearsed, but capturing that moment the way it was captured by Esther Lynn, who took the photo. There it is, a phenomenal photo, and she was lucky enough to be working for Showtime, so she's coming at it from the other way. You see all the cameras,
all the other photographers.
Yeah, all the cameramen. You know what's a lot of fun about this particular photo? It's a beautifully shot. I mean, it's just amazing. The point, the bring it, what they're wearing, you know, like the juxtaposition, but you also look into the crowd.
Yeah.
And if I could just stand up here for a second, my favorite part of this, if I could just stand up, go to the shot, the other shot, the Skype shot. Right here.
Yeah, that guy.
Here. If you want to take a look at the bottom right, the fan who's taking, you see him?
Yeah, the guy dead center isn't bad either.
Oh, that's like the looks on everyone's faces, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It's just amazing. It's a great vantage point. It's a great shot. That to me, when I think of Mayweather McGregor, that's the photo right there, captured beautifully. And so, photo of the year, you know, it could be a knockout, a submission, action, face, whatever. This to me, like, this was this is one of the greatest fight photos I've ever seen. Like, if I had an office somewhere, honestly, this photo should be up here. It's one of my favorite photos of all time. So kudos to Esther, who took this for Showtime Sports, for capturing this amazing moment. Just amazing stuff.
I have to admit some shenanigans here.
Okay.
I knew what your pick was. You told me.
Okay.
Undoubtedly, it's the very first photo I thought of. It was my pick, but I didn't go with it.
Wow.
For the reason that we're going to be showing two photos. I don't think it's right that we show one photo and both go. So I picked a different one, but undoubtedly that was the very first photo I thought of, was them pointing at each other.
So why can't you pick it?
I want to give shine to another photo that touched me in particular, because I remember, and there's a story behind it. I remember the first time I saw it, I was working this show and I was loading in the assets into the TriCaster, and getting the stuff ready for the show. And I saw this photo, and it kind of broke me a little bit. Like, it's just so powerful, and it's just everything you kind of want from human emotion. So we're gonna show that photo now, and it's Chris Weidman's dad.
Oh, that's a great one.
With Chris after his win in Long Island. He's become a character over all of Chris's fights, you know, speaking in the cage afterwards. This one is just like, you see the love between a father and son, and it touches your heart a little bit. Also by Esther Lin.
Yep. This one for MMA fighting. I had some others. Another one that made the running, Dillashaw screaming in Garbrandt's face. Yep.
That one really stood out for me. But this one, I think, had an emotional story that really connected with me. And I remember that feeling I had when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's a great photo. Mr. Weidman.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Papa Weidman.
Gotta love it. All right, I like that one. That's a fun category. The photogs don't get enough credit, so great stuff there. By the way, we both picked Esther, not just because, you know, she's our colleague, but she got great photos. And she's one of the best. And
I believe the TJ Dillashaw screaming at Cody Garbrandt, that one, Esther was behind. Yeah. So that one is a different photographer. I didn't...
that might be the UFC's photographer.
But yeah, that one was also great. And obviously we don't have choices from last year because this is a brand new category.
Yes. Okay, let's move along now to Impact Person of the Year. We added this last year because I think we thought, okay, this could be the award where you give it to a promoter, you could give it to a manager, you can give it to a journalist, a broadcaster, you could give it to a coach, anyone who really impacted the sport. And again, one of those awards where can be interpreted in different ways. This year, I gave it, as I did last year, this is my only repeat winner, by the way, I gave it to Conor McGregor because in the sport of MMA in 2017, it all goes through him. Whether we like it or not, he controls many people's destinies, and he controls the narrative, and he controls the news cycle, and he controls, you know, the talking points and what we talk about on this show and the beat and every other show. And you saw it, like, you can't escape him. And I hope we see him back. And I hope we see him back sooner rather than later because he's in his prime right now. And I hope he gets paid what he's deserved because he should be the highest paid fighter in UFC history. And he deserved what he made against Mayweather. You can argue he deserved more. because of how big of an event that was. So to me, Conor continues to impact the sport unlike any other. No different in 2017. I know somewhat controversial because he didn't fight in MMA in 2017, but he was still impacting the UFC's decisions. He was still impacting the lightweight division, the featherweight division. He's a cloud that hangs over the sport. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but he is a behemoth. He is a gorilla. He is the star of stars. He's the one and only Conor McGregor. So to me, he continues to impact, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins it again next year. We have never seen a star like him in MMA.
Zero to add to that. Didn't even fight in the sport. Controls it like nobody else.
Yeah.
If you don't pick Conor McGregor, you're fooling yourself. It's Conor McGregor. It was Conor McGregor last year. It'll probably be Conor McGregor next year. There's nothing to say. It's Conor McGregor. I don't have runners up because it doesn't matter. It's Conor McGregor.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Khabib wins. We wait for his tweet, right? And then yesterday,
it's all Conor.
He tweets a bunch of times, and it's news stories. I mean, like everything he does. We are and whether you like it or not, we are sitting back and waiting to see what he does next, what he decides to do. Who will he choose? We've never had a fighter who controls his own destiny the way he does. He can say tomorrow, I'm fighting at welterweight, and the UFC will say yes. I have no doubt about it. He could say I'm fighting at middleweight, and the UFC will say yes. Bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, catchweight, whatever he wants, he's going to get. They need him right now. In 5 years, maybe not. But right now, they need him more than he needs them. Right?
I agree.
No one brings the kind of attention that he brings. No one brings the kind of press that he brings. No one brings the numbers that he brings. And I know for sure that people will say, oh, it should be this guy, that guy. No, it's not even close.
I think even the most staunch Conor McGregor haters will not disagree. Who else could it be? You can't pick anybody else. You're fooling yourself if you do.
Yeah.
Even your pick is looking at Conor McGregor. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who your pick would have been. They are courting Conor McGregor. He is the guy.
Was he your pick last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I also had Nate Diaz, Lorenzo Fertitta, Scott Coker, Andy Foster last year, but this year it felt like, and amazingly, last year he fought 3 times. This year he fought 0 times in MMA. And he's bigger.
But it's because the others fell off. The impact of those other people was not felt.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor was more magnanimous than ever.
He is on a level with the likes of like Cristiano Ronaldo and LeBron James, like worldwide superstars right now. Floyd Mayweather, etc. So an amazing year, and it's somewhat bizarre that he didn't fight in MMA, but we continue to sort of live and breathe with every tweet, every quote, every interview that Conor McGregor produces. So he is our 2017 Impact Person of the Year. And for me, that rolls right into the story of the year. Again, whether you like it or not, there was no bigger story in combat sports, in MMA, in boxing, and for a large chunk of time in sports, period, than Mayweather versus McGregor. No one thought it would get done. I remember going into that interview with Conor in January, thinking to myself, oh, we're going to talk about getting stripped of the featherweight title. We're going to get, we're going to get to WrestleMania. We're going to get to lightweight title, blah, blah, blah. And it dawned on me very quickly that he had one agenda, and that was to talk Floyd Mayweather, that he was dead set on this fight happening, that in his mind, it was going to happen, and it was going to happen sooner rather than later. If you recall in that interview, he predicted it would happen around the end of the year. It happened even sooner. And all of a sudden, like early spring, it escalated very quickly. And then, boom, there we were in mid-June. I remember it like it was yesterday. It gets announced. And 2.5 months later, boom, there we are, August 26th in Las Vegas. For me personally, covering the event, covering the world tour, was unlike anything I've ever experienced. For us as a show, the shows on the road were unlike anything I've ever experienced. The interview with Floyd at his club, unlike anything I've ever experienced. The sit down with Conor a couple of weeks before, the media days, the press conferences, Toronto, all that stuff. There was no greater story than this one. And as I said on the Monday after the fight, I thought that the spectacle became sport. It was a competitive fight. I don't like what's happened afterwards. I don't think it meant as much for MMA as we thought it did. I don't like the paintings on the wall and all that stuff. I don't like Floyd saying that he, carried him and all that stuff. But I remember just being there at that moment. It's one of the few times in my life covering MMA or sports that I felt like, okay, I'm covering the story of the day, right? Like even if I'm at a massive fight, if it's UFC 214, there's still going to be, a major event that's bigger than that one. That's going to dominate the headlines. That's going to dominate SportsCenter, whatever it is. Everyone in the sports world, in the world, it seemed like, was talking about this, knew this was happening. All eyes were on Las Vegas. There were some things that I would have done differently. The crowd was not great. It was, it was somewhat empty. I mean, it was empty for like 95% of the night. It was crazy. It was like the co-main event. There's still 1,000 people in that arena, and it's a big arena. And of course, like Brooklyn, I would change, and London, I would change, and some of the slurs and things like that. But there was absolutely no bigger story than this one. Yeah. The second highest selling pay-per-view of all time, second highest grossing fight of all time. Go on and on and on. It was a big deal. It was a pleasure to cover it. It was a lot of fun. And it's one of those things I'll never forget. Story of the year, 2017. I felt this was a pretty easy one.
No disagreement there. Very easy. The thing I'd say probably comes the closest to being at the event that everybody's talking about is maybe Ronda Rousey in her peak. There's probably something close to that where the entire sports world is looking at it. The entire world is looking at it. But there's no bigger story. There was no bigger story than Mayweather-McGregor, and probably not a bigger story in fight sports, period, than Mayweather-McGregor was. Regardless of outcome, that doesn't matter when we're talking about what the story of this year was, and it was Mayweather-McGregor. It dominated everything.
Yeah. It's still somewhat surreal that it happened.
Can't believe it happened. This is what I was talking about at the top of the show. I'm confused. I can't believe that that's a thing that happened.
Yeah. But to me, again, it's still kind of aging in front of our eyes. Right now, I feel like it's not aging well. We'll see what happens. The UFC needs him back.
Would it be better what if Floyd took a box cutter to his photos right now and started the
Yes, it would be better.
Venom back up?
I would enjoy that very much. Yeah, let's stop talking about the boxing thing. Like, we want to see him back in MMA. It's like, yeah, it was cool to see Jordan try out for the White Sox, but like, I want to see him back playing basketball, right? Like, and
he'll be bigger and better.
Yeah,
it'll only be bigger.
Yeah. Oh man, could you imagine him coming back? How big of a deal that would be for the sport, for the UFC, and hopefully it's the right fight.
It'll be my comeback of the year, no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
So last year, my story of the year was the sale of the UFC.
Likewise,
that was a big deal. Other ones for this year. John Jones returning and then popping was a massive deal, and which obviously culminated the week of Mayweather-McGregor. That was a huge deal on the Tuesday before the fight, finding out.
John Jones is like, you know what? I want to overshadow this.
That was
crazy. Let me give it a shot.
Dana White, in my opinion, and in front of our eyes, losing interest in being a UFC promoter, but then all of a sudden, like, finding the fountain of youth when it comes to Mayweather-McGregor. Like, the Dana White who was promoting that event and the Dana White who promoted the UFC last year, two completely different individuals. He was more invested. He was more passionate. He was more interested. It was all those things and more. So, speaking of which, did you watch the presser?
You're talking about Stipe and
on Friday?
Stipe and Francis, yeah.
You watched it from beginning to end?
I did, yeah.
I was going to note this, but it's like every time you notice, like, you're being, no, I'm being an unbiased observer. We're sitting there, right? I mean, this is a big deal. This is the first face-off between Francis and Stipe, right? I mean, this is something that we are looking forward to, unlike any other heavyweight fight, right? I mean, we are foaming at the mouth when it comes to this fight.
This is definitely the best heavyweight fight in a long, long time.
We're sitting there. We're waiting. We're waiting for them to come out. But first, we're waiting for Dana White. And I feel like we've been teed up here. Like, this is the like, this is heavyweight fighting. Like, this, okay, it's one thing to promote a strawweight title fight. It's one thing to promote a bantamweight title fight. But this is a heavyweight title fight. This is a fight that everyone can get excited about. This is a promoter's dream. Francis Ngannou is knocking people's heads off. Like, literally, I think Overeem's head was like a little bit knocked off his head there, like off his neck, like it was just like kind of hanging for a second, and then it came back. But
Pez Dispenser,
yes, Pez Dispenser, perfect analogy. Stipe Miocic, 4 straight, I think it is, on the cusp of making history, right?
About to, if he wins, he breaks the record for title defense.
Walks up. Did you see what happened? Walks up and completely botches the intro. completely botches the intro. No. He's reading off a piece of paper and he starts talking about the DC Volkan fight. And even like, okay, let's just forget the fact that wasn't supposed to happen first. Even botches that part. And then he says, oh, wait, I botched it. Watch this clip. And then it's the phenomenal promo, the 220 promo, right?
That's a good way to recover.
How is this possible? And then in the middle, he's like reading something off a piece of paper about like how getting knocked out by Ngannou is like the same as getting knocked by like a dodge.
Yeah, the force measurement of the.
What is that? You can't tell me it's the same. You can't tell me that getting punched in the, like, if that's the case, Overeem is not alive. You can't tell me it's the same. You can't tell me getting run over by a car is the same.
I was about to get real nerdy on it. But
no, get nerdy, please.
I was just going to say, like, the surface area of the object that's hitting, the force may be equal, but the surface area of the car may disperse it differently and therefore lead to the fatality.
The point is, it's not necessary. It's the easiest. It's a layup. It's the layup of all layups. It's Stipe Miocic on the cusp of breaking history.
Yeah.
He's making history.
And counted out.
No one has ever, yes, and he's the underdog. And like he's the everyman, right? And he's going in there against a guy who has people like trembling in their boots, right? Everyone's afraid of Francis Ngannou. Like you want that to happen to you? And here's Stipe saying like, oh, by the way, guys, I'm the champion and I'll gladly take this fight in a month and change. Like, what do you need to read off a piece of paper for? Like, just get it going. Like, just show us some excitement. Like, get us pumped up for this, man. Like, where is that guy? I saw that guy in Toronto. I saw that guy in Brooklyn. I saw that guy in London. I saw that guy in Los Angeles. This is a dream fight. This is a dream fight. Francis Ngannou, who has not been training in MMA for more than 4 years, who was homeless. Like you can't write these kinds of scripts, right? I mean, and like, forget about the DC Volkan fight, which is a great fight, which has a story, and it's DC coming back, and he's doing a great job of promoting that himself. But you really need a piece of paper. Like, you can't get up there and get excited for a second about that. Can you not get us excited about that? It's happening in your hometown of Boston too. Gosh darn it. Where is that guy? Where is he? I want to see him. Where is he? How do you not get excited about that fight? Like, how do you not get up there and say, like, guys, I got to tell you, 2017 was a great year for us. Yeah, it was our greatest year ever, blah, blah, blah. I know most of you don't believe it. But if you are not excited about Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic, if you don't think that this is one of the greatest heavyweight fights of all time, if you don't think that someone's head is getting knocked off within the first 4 minutes, then I need to talk to you, because you are absolutely out of your mind. This is one of the greatest heavyweight fights in the history of combat sports. Forget about boxing, MMA, kickboxing, karate, whatever you want to talk about, taekwondo. This has me excited. This has me pumped up. God, it drives me like, this is amazing stuff. It's amazing. Just get excited about it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is that guy? Where is that guy? Where is he? Where is he? Don't get up there and be like, hey guys, here I am with my hoodie sweatshirt, and I just woke up from a nap. Daniel Cormier is the champion, and Volkan Oezdemir. Wait a second. I was supposed to talk about. Yeah, could you just roll that clip? No, if I did that, I'd be fired. All right, let's go. Come on.
I'll say this though: when they did turn it over to Francis and Stipe,
the fighters did a great job.
I think they did a great job.
The fighters did a great job. Francis, I actually thought, did a really great job, and I thought that he was teeing up Stipe. Remember when he said, like, don't lie?
When he says, Stipe's, worried about him and he's coming for him, and Stipe had the opportunity to kind of laugh it off.
It was amazing.
He teed him up perfectly. It was beautiful. They really,
the face-off was great. Volkan and DC were great as well. I mean, let's not forget, Francis and Volkan, they were taking part in their first pre-fight press conference ever.
Right. Yeah.
Ever. They've never been in that position before. And I thought they did a great job. So I don't know. I was thinking about that. I'm sorry I went on a little bit of a rant there, but that was one of my stories. The other
promo of the year, 2018, Ariel Helwani.
Also, yeah. Anyway, what else did you have for story of the year?
I think you covered on the biggest ones. GSP coming back, obviously, and what does the title mean at this point? I think we had a year where the title is becoming less and less valuable. Which is an interesting story to me. Now, I'll say this. Habib is doing his part to make the title still valuable by saying that that's what he wants. So at least, the end of the year, we're going toward that. But I'm questioning what the title actually means this year, and this is the first year that I've done that.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I also had like the UFC's kind of struggles to sort of figure things out post sale, and the titles and the interim titles and the hot shot booking and all that. As you said at the top, a confusing one.
Confusing.
All right, so our stories of the year, and then finally, I said it earlier, my feel good moment of the year, Rose Namajunas. Can we play that?
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah, here we go. Rose Namajunas, my feel good moment of the year for 2017.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Big John McCarthy has called a stop to this contest at 3 minutes, 3 seconds of the very first round. Declaring the winner by knockout and new undisputed UFC Strawweight Champion of the world, Rose
I'm at a loss for words. That was unbelievable. The winner and new UFC Strawweight Champion of the world, Rose Namajunas. How does that sound to you?
Man, it sounds like butter. Sound like butter.
Does this even feel real?
No, it don't. I feel like a movie right now.
There was so much tension and so much emotion leading up to this fight. The weigh-ins, she was saying all kinds of crazy stuff to you, and you were reciting the Lord's Prayer. What was going through your mind when all this was happening?
There's so much like crap going on in the media, news and stuff, and I just want to try and use my gift of martial arts to try and make this world a better place and change the world. This belt don't mean nothing, man. Just be a good person. That's it. This is extra. This is awesome, but let's just give each other hugs and be nice, man. I mean, I know we fight, but this is entertainment. Afterwards, it's nothing.
Rose, out of all the ways that people thought you were going to win this fight, winning by knockout was very low on that list. Where you dropped bombs on her and she tapped due to strikes, and now you are the new Strawweight Champion of the world. Tell us how you feel.
I feel like a normal person, man. That's it. I'm just regular. Ain't nothing special here.
There's something special whether you admit it or not. Congratulations on an amazing performance. It was an honor to call your fight. Rose Namajunas, ladies and gentlemen.
I feel like a normal person, man. There's nothing special here. And Pat Barry in the back with his hands up. What a great moment. I loved it. I told her how much I loved it. Seeing everyone react to it warmed my heart, and it still warms my heart. I loved it. That was an awesome moment.
Truly genuine and a feel-good moment, no doubt about it. On my list, but my winner, and we've covered it on this show.
Are you still eating?
What?
What are you eating now?
I'm not eating anything.
All right. Maybe
Why?
I'm projecting because I'm so hungry. No, go ahead, because you're chewing. You are eating something. You're just doing the old man saliva thing? This is the feel-good moment of the year. You've completely changed your persona in 2018. You used to be like this is your award. You actually campaigned to get rid of this award. Be honest.
I did, because it's a duplicate of moment of the year.
Yeah, but we don't have moment of the year. So you wanted moment.
Moment and story are the two.
No.
This, you could do a feel-good moment under moment of the year. Like, you can't
I want
now do
specific feel-good, because I'm a positive guy.
It's inflexible. It's immalleable. You've made a wrong decision. Right decision this year, and I know you're on board with this one. Diego Sanchez.
Yeah.
Isaac the Shermanator Marquez.
Yeah.
Who we had on the show.
Yeah.
Go find that interview. Ariel interviewed both of them together via Skype. We had both of them in via Skype. And we have some B-roll. We don't have to play the whole thing, but we do have some B-roll of the fight, which, all this culminated in Diego meeting Isaac in the cage.
Yeah.
Here we see at a Jackson Wink MMA event, Diego doing something really, really special.
Actually, don't play the clip. You know why? Some weird thing happened with the YouTube flagging it, and they got I don't want to do that. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah. Noted. See, I'm the one who's looking out for all you.
But well done to Diego.
It was one of my favorite segments. Getting both of them on the program.
If you haven't seen it, go see that interview, but you can find more online about Diego and Isaac the Shermanator.
Isaac now looking for another fight against John Dodson.
John Dodson, he better watch himself.
That's all right. It was an annoying thing to go through. Yeah, so that was one of my picks. I had that. Brian Ortega's post-fight speech after his win over Cub Swanson was awesome, talking about helping kids and, wanting to work with charities. That was great. Max Holloway and his son at UFC 218, dabbing on everyone, left and right, dab, 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 dab. Mini blessed, right? Chris Weidman on Long Island, the win. You talked about the photo with his dad and the emotions there. That was a feel-good moment. Jesse Taylor winning. I know it has somewhat changed when the year progressed, but in that moment, him coming back and winning was an incredible moment. GSP coming back and winning, and the way he, hung around the cage, and it was just seeing him back was somewhat surreal. Felt great, and also the UFC 217 post-fight feeling. I remember just sitting there in the moment, in the press conference, like just taking it all in and doing this show afterwards. Like the sport was awesome. Like with all the crap that we dealt with last year, the sport was great that night. And the new champions handled themselves phenomenally, and the old champions handled themselves even more impressively. That post-fight feeling is something that I'll never forget. That was a great feeling. And last but not least, one that I wanted to mention, again, UFC 216. And it doesn't like perfectly fit under the feel good, but just the way the UFC handled that, I thought was really well done. And, America the Beautiful with, I keep thinking Everlast. I was singing Coldplay. Everlast singing. I just thought it was really well done. So those are some other feel-good moments that come to mind. There were a lot of them this year, actually.
Yeah.
Last year, my pick was Cody Garbrandt and Maddox Maple.
Yep, my pick as well.
Giving him the belt.
Giving him the belt. Another one worth mentioning, I had this as one of Rick's picks. You can find this as well. Danny Castillo and Team Alpha Male teamed up with Make-A-Wish, and they did something really, really special for a kid named Bryant Mordinoa, who became the Sack Ninja. They helped him kind of become a ninja, I guess not a superhero, in the local area, saving the day. Really, really cool. So you can find some of that on Danny Castillo's Instagram, and Alpha Male and all those guys were involved, and the Make-A-Wish people as well.
Great one.
Really, really cool what they did, and really, really cool what Diego did for Isaac the Shermanator.
All right. That's number 20.
It's number 20.
Thus concludes the 2017 MMA Hour Award Show. How about that? 20 awards given out to some of the greatest people in the sport. We heard from a lot of them. By the way, I was wondering, I didn't hear from any of your winners. You didn't reach out, or? I mean, I figured at least the Invicta winner you could have gotten.
I didn't reach out. I didn't want to step all over what you were doing.
I like your, what were their names again?
What are you talking about for?
Jacobson.
Round of the year?
Yeah,
Sharon Jacobson, Callie Robbins.
Yeah. So that's it. It was a great show. I thought it was our best one yet. Before we say goodbye, we have to look ahead, right? We like to do this. 4 little categories here. We look at the story to watch in 2018. We look at the male fighter of the year in 2018. Lest we forget, I predicted it for this year, Demetrius Johnson. We look at the female fighter in 2018. And then we also look at the most desired guest for this program in 2018. I will start story to watch 2018. There's 2. I'm going 2 here. The UFC's TV deal, a massive story. Where will they end up? How much will it be for? Will they re-sign with Fox? Will they go to AT&T and Turner? Will they go to Amazon? Will they go to ESPN? Will they go somewhere else? Who knows? And how much will that be for? Because I think that the sale and the $4.025 billion number was very much reliant on a big TV deal coming up at the end of 2018. Also kind of along those same lines, are the fighters going to wake up and are they going to ask for a cut of this deal? I don't think it's going to happen. It's one of the most frustrating stories to watch unfold. We saw them come out with this new fighter policy, and Lawrence Epstein is telling ESPN our hearts are in the right places, and they're upping, the Reebok deal $1,000, $2,000. Like the fighters need a seat at the table. If they're content with that, great. Have a seat at the table, collectively bargain, have a say, have a representative, do this the right way. That's what should be done as far as the TV deal is concerned. The NBA players get 50%. Are they going to, You know, are they gonna see the light and see that they're missing out on a lot of money? Just because you collectively bargain doesn't mean you're all getting paid the same, but it does mean that you're getting a piece of the pie on top of what you get paid. Kevin Durant and LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony and Kristaps Porzingis don't get the same amount, but they are a part of a partnership, a union, if you will, and they collectively bargain with the head of the union, with the NBA owners, and it all comes together and it works very well. Trust me, it works a lot better than what you guys have going on. So will that come to fruition? And then the other one I wanted to add was Conor's future. Does he come back? What does he do? Does he fight? Who does he fight? Again, we are all kind of waiting to see what happens there. So those are my stories to watch in 2018. How about you?
Same winner. What does the UFC's new broadcast deal look like? What is the future of the UFC's broadcast product? Where is it? What platforms? How is it cut? Is it one partner? Is it multiple partners? How does that look, and how does it impact the fight cards? Do the fighters get a cut? So the UFC's new broadcast deal, what does it look like, is my story to watch in 2018. Is Conor McGregor coming back? If so, who's it against? Why? When? Zuffa Boxing, what is it, and who's going to be involved? And what does it mean for
That's a really good
MMA
one.
fighters?
That's a really good one. Yep. I continue to hear that people believe it will be a thing. I actually think it would be just what the doctor ordered for Dana White. I think he's passionate about boxing. He needs a new challenge. He wants to prove that he could do it there. It's something he's always dreamed about. But how will that affect the UFC? Does it actually get off the ground? Does he partner up with Al Heyman? What's going on? You know, does Floyd Mayweather fight in the UFC?
Stop.
My story to watch last year for this year was the UFC changes under the new ownership. And I think that ended up being one of the stories as well.
I'm going to pat myself on the back for how prescient my story to watch in 2017 was. Which brand is worth more, the UFC or Conor McGregor? In 2016, Conor McGregor began exerting his influence in new ways. I expect the continuation of that to be the biggest story in 2017. And on about, you know, which brand is more valuable? Is Conor bigger than the UFC? And I think we got the answer on that when he flexed his muscles and made a fight between Mayweather and himself happen. I think there's no doubt about it that Conor McGregor is the biggest thing in combat sports. And that proved to be true this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll see the same level of exertion of his power next year. I think that now that he's done the boxing thing and it wasn't successful, that handicaps him a little bit. But no doubt about it that he'll be the most powerful MMA fighter by far next year. But the story to watch is, what is the broadcast deal?
Fighter of the year for me last year, as I've said multiple times, Demetrius Johnson. He ends up being my fighter of the year. Honestly, I only realized this after. I swear to the MMA gods, I only realized it after
And then you have the video ready. You just
what video? I didn't have any video ready. What are you talking about?
The interview ready with Demetrius.
What do you mean the Demetrius? Of course I set it up, but I didn't realize that I picked him. Who did you pick last year?
I picked Khabib Nurmagomedov.
I mean,
look, I had the caveat in there, like this could blow up and it could not be healthy. But I picked Khabib.
My pick for 2018, Max Blessed Holloway.
You're a year late.
No. He's bringing it back. Look, I'm not a year late. He was in the discussion, but he's going to be active this year. He's going to fight 2 to 3 times. He's going to assert himself as the guy, and that's my prediction. Male Fighter of the Year in 2018, Max Holloway.
He actually doesn't even make my list.
Wow.
Reason being, I just think the options are limited for him to get an opponent. Not any more so than Demetrius. I think Demetrius and Max are in a similar spot where it's going to be tough for them to have viable opponents. And I think there are other people who are going to have more of an impact just because there's more fights readily available for them. My pick this year, Fighter of the Year for 2018, Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Okay.
I think, look, I'm going to pick him. I've been saying this for so long. I think he's the best fighter at 170 pounds or below, bar none. Not a better fighter on the planet. Maybe even as high as 185. I don't think there's anybody better than him on the lighter weight classes. He just can't get out of his own way, though. But I think we'll finally see the year where he's healthy. I think we'll finally see the year where he's able to capture the title. I'm picking Khabib and crossing my fingers and knocking on wood. But I think the guy is just unstoppable. I really believe and have been saying for the longest time that I think there's nobody better than him. I think this will be the year he proves it. I was hoping it was this coming. I was hoping it was 2017, but I'm predicting it will be 2018 now. Some other contenders, I think Luke Rockhold's set for a big year. If he can regain the title, I think he'll definitely put himself in good position. Conor McGregor, if and when he comes back, that will be huge. He almost doesn't need more than one fight to be able to be the fighter of the year. TJ Dillashaw, I think, will have a very good year. Daniel Cormier is putting himself in great position because he's starting off in January. That matters a lot where you fall on the calendar. Because then you can get a few more in. But Khabib Nurmagomedov is my pick.
Darren Till.
Yeah.
Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, some others that could be in the discussion. But yeah, my pick is Max Holloway, female fighter of the year. Last year, I went with Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
As did I.
It didn't come to fruition. This year, I'm going with Valentina Shevchenko. I think a lot of people believe if she gets in there, 125, she's going to make her debut very shortly, gets a title shot, that she'll reign supreme. So I'll go with Valentina Shevchenko, my female fighter of the year for this coming year. Your pick?
My pick, Amanda Nunes. I think this is a very tough one. It's hard to kind of see where these divisions are going and lay out the paths for them. But I'm going with Amanda Nunes. I think she's best positioned for defending her title, but also for potential super fights. You know, she could end up in a fight with Cris Cyborg. I think that Amanda is probably in the best position. But there's a lot of people. It could be Cris Cyborg, could be again. The problem there is finding matchups for her at 145 to make it worth, picking her for fighter of the year. Rose Namajunas defending her belt. Valentina Shevchenko, as you said, could be potential flyweight champion. Jessica Andrade has a fight against Tisha Torres, and I think Tisha and Jessica are both in that discussion. If they can get past each other, their next, inevitable fight would probably be Rose Namajunas. So there's a lot of good options here, but I'm picking Amanda Nunes, female fighter of the year 2018.
And finally, we like to throw this out. We don't like to, make these awards about the show and all that. Like sometimes I see things like interview of the year and all that. I don't really feel comfortable about that. But I like to throw it out there into the atmosphere. Our most desired guest to be on this program, and we should throw out that we're very lucky that Who's Who stops by. No complaints, and we appreciate everyone who stops by. But if we're gonna go pie in the sky, we like to maybe throw it out there to the MMA gods, if they can grant us these interviews. Last year, I swung and a miss. I asked for Joe Silva, who did not show up on the program, who was largely out of the spotlight, although he did accept an award, or actually Hall of Fame induction in July. And I also threw out once again, I think for like the 8th straight year, Gina Carano.
Yeah.
And I must say that I'm very hurt. I'm not disappointed. I'm hurt because I tried to get Gina Carano on the 400th episode. I mean, of all the big names in the history of the sport, like she's the last one left. And we have her up there, right over there, the photo. And it's right over there, the great Gina Carano. Anyway, and tried to get her for episode 400. We were in contact, and she said, you know what? I'm going to be in Las Vegas, end of the year, holidays. Let's do it in person. Sit down interview. We'll reflect. It'll be great. I said, you know what? That's great. I wanted you episode 400, but I'll wait. That's going to be awesome. Reach out to her. Nothing. Reach out to her again. Nothing. Reach out to her after the event. Nothing. So I'm disappointed. No, I'm not disappointed. I'm hurt. Yeah. So if you're out there, Gina, please answer my text. Please come on the program. That's all I ask. I mean, we're paying homage to you right over there. You meant a lot to my career. It'd be nice to have you on the program. That's 2017. 2018, the great Lorenzo Fertitta, my good friend.
Is this the number one? This is the pick?
I'd say this is the pick because he still has not done an interview.
Yeah.
Why'd you sell? What do you think of it now? What are you doing now? What's next? Lorenzo Fertitta doesn't like me. I don't know why, but he doesn't like me. I never got the impression that he liked me. But wouldn't it be awesome if he was sitting right over here?
Yeah.
And we were shooting the breeze. Also, I'll throw out there Ari Emanuel, because he too has not done an interview. He too has not talked about his plans or why he bought the UFC or, where he sees it going. None of that. So I'd love to talk to him as well. And because I'm a sucker, because I'm a pathetic loser, I'll throw Gina's name on there as well, because it would be nice to have her on the program.
My list is very similar to last year's. Okay, let me start with last year. I picked The Rock. I wanted to see The Rock on the show.
Yeah.
We didn't make that happen. This year, our answers are actually the same, which I don't think it has been in the history of this awards. I'm going with Lorenzo Fertitta as well. A few other names: Dana White, Ari Emanuel, Joe Silva. I'll put The Rock again, Kobe Bryant. I mean, these are big names, but they're not out of left field. They have some kind of connection to fight sports and MMA, and they'd be a fit on the show. LeBron James, Kristaps Porzingis, Demi Lovato, new entrant for this year, Roseanne Barr.
Oh, yes. What a great tweet.
Gina Carano and Prebeck. I always end with Gina Carano and Prebeck.
Oh, my God, Prebeck. Where have you been?
Gina Carano and Prebeck are my go-to enders, but we're in agreement. Lorenzo Fertitta is the one I want the most.
Should be a fun year. By the way, Ali Abdelaziz, guy talking smack all day on Twitter here. You're a kiss ass. I'm turning off the show. 30 minutes ago, he says, I'm turning off the show because I said that Conor was the impact person of the year. And then sends me a text saying how I lost all respect for you, blah, blah, blah. I'm turning off the show, all this stuff. I write back to him in the midst of the show. I said, yeah, well, I bet you're still watching. Just sends me a picture of him still watching the show. It said 2018 female fighter. He's still watching the show.
So he had to have seen the love for Habib. I mean,
Habib time,
from the
baby.
show. Yeah. I mean,
come on. All right. It has been fun. So this is what's left today. You know, it's funny. I told the crew in the back, it's probably going to be a shorter show because we only have a couple of guests. It's 4:54. It's amazing. We went right to the buzzer. How about that? Incredible. All right. So what we're going to do now, we got Rick's picks coming up. Did you take the week off or you got something for us?
I got some Rick's picks.
Okay. Got a couple questions?
I got a couple questions.
Wow. You actually did your job. That's great.
Yeah.
Did you finish your lunch?
This is the show that I really slacked on.
Did you finish
this
lunch?
was the one.
Did you finish lunch?
No, I didn't.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so it has been a very fun show. 2017 award show is in the books. Hope you enjoyed it. If you disagree with any of our picks, awesome. You're all entitled to your opinions. Send us your recommendations. Send us your picks. It's always fun to hear. It's been a great year in MMA. And I suspect 2018 will be even better because we'll be together. And we'll get to enjoy it together. The ups and the downs, the roller coasters. We'll be there every step of the way. We'll be doing this show. So do not fret. Okay, what we're doing now, you see right over there, that's the address. live.twitter.com/MMA fighting. Time in a few seconds for the MMA After Hour. In case you forgot, in case you've had too many drinks over the past holiday season, that's when we do Rick's Picks. That's when we answer some of your questions. And that's when we say goodbye. So thank you for watching the 2017 MMA Hour Awards. If you've been watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on MMAfighting.com, minimize those screens. Go to Twitter. I've been tweeting out the link all day long, or go to that address, live.twitter.com/MMA fighting. You'll get the first Rick's Picks of 2018. We'll answer some questions. Still a couple of things we haven't addressed thus far, and then we'll call it a day. So go there right now. It's the MMA After Hour, and it starts right now.